Man, I've got this long list of notes that I'm always keeping, as I'm obviously you've seen. I guess that's more for the viewership. But and I've always got a lot of voice memos I put in there, or things I like come out of a fugue state of a dream and type in. And there's always sometimes I go back and read them, and I'm just like, man, I'm sure that was something tremendously interesting, and I have no idea what I put in my phone there. I just don't know what that idea is.
Yeah, I have those moments too where I'll type something out what I think is in this moment of brilliance, and then when I go back to, that's really unintelligent. It's like I'm glad that I didn't say that out loud.
Glad that stayed in my stupid notes app.
For sure. I was
Only
having lunch.
me and Matt are the only ones who know how dumb I am.
Yeah, for sure. I was having lunch the other day with a friend, and as I was about to say something, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I think what I'm about to say is really stupid. And he looked at me and is like, well, now I'm curious. And I was like, no, I want to. It's like I want to tell you because I thought it out, and it's like I'm a little ashamed that I even had that my like thought process led me to have to like that conclusion. And he goes, come on,
I'm upset that my brain was that dumb.
you should tell me. And I told him, and he goes, yeah, you should have kept that one to yourself. And I was like,
I do think less of you now.
It was like you told me to tell you.
I had an experience a while back where there was a sweet girl that I worked with that was not the brightest crayon in the pack. And one day I said something, we were chatting politics in the back, and I said something about being a libertarian, and she perked up. She was like, oh my God, me too. And I had 24 hours where I was like, just, am I retarded? Like, is my worldview wrong because I came to the same conclusion as maybe the dumbest person I work with?
Yeah,
it turned out to be okay. She turned out to be one of the it's not enough to be anti-racist. We must be actively anti-racist type of libertarian.
She's one of those libertarians. She's the Chase Oliver libertarian.
One of the wrong libertarians.
For sure. And I think, to be fair, you're not a real libertarian unless you start branding other groups of libertarians. Not real libertarians.
That's part of my explanation now when people ask me what it means, libertarianism, or what is it about? I'll explain the philosophy in my elevator pitch, but I also come to no libertarian takes you seriously unless you disavow all other libertarians for not being as libertarian.
For sure. If you're not their sect of libertarian, then you're not a real libertarian, and you might as well just be a communist. You know what I mean? It's like it's communist, fascist, everybody else, including other libertarians, and then way over on the right side, it's like my brand of libertarianism.
And then all of the good libertarians, Ron Paul and me, and that's the end of the list. Rand doesn't even make the cut. He upset me.
Right.
We'll too comfortable with his rhino pin on at times.
Yeah, the infighting is real, but also I think it comes with the territory it reminds me a lot about skiing and snowboarding, where the infighting, even though it's very playful, the infighting is very
you're all rich white kids playing in the snow. Relax.
Exactly. Because to us, there's it's like oh, snowboarders, like as far as I'm concerned, Flirt Cheap's a knuckle dragger and a mouth breather because he's snowboard. He's one step above
he's a snowboarder,
and he's one step above Neanderthal because he snowboards. And then I know he has the same opinion about me, but then if you ask anybody else from the outside, they can't tell the difference. We're all just a bunch of privileged people playing in the snow. It's like, wait, like, why do you hate? Like, you guys are the same. Don't you realize that? And the same, like, no, I'm not. They're not real libertarians. Okay. Like you can't.
I wonder if it still has, you could probably speak to this better than I can, but is there still the stigma of like skiers are snobbier than snowboarders and snowboarders are kind of the cool rebels, or has that changed with the generation?
We're back in the generational flip.
I was about to say that was always an ironic observation of snowboarders to be like, these pretentious rich skiers, and it's like, you're also in Taos right now, dude. Like,
right.
There's nobody on your team that's an oppressed minority either, bud.
Right. And it's like, I think it does go to like the class of it all, because there are dirt bags that work at the mountain, and they're skiers and snowboard. Like I was one for years, right? I was just I was just a poor dirtbag that worked on the mountain, and that's how I was able to get, because we got like 50% off on gear. Like I could not have afforded to play in the game without those discounts. But still, you're still sliding around in a really nice part of the country in a really nice play. There's nothing poor
with a
about
ski
it.
ticket pinned to your $500 jacket that cost exactly the same.
For sure. And it's but to your point, it has flipped where, because now all of the parents were snowboarders to rebel against their parents being
Yeah.
skiers, and so those kids are now being skiers.
I imagine that informed a lot of that conversation when we were kids too, though, because all of our parents, for the most part, were skiers,
Or
and
skiers.
most of our peers happened to be snowboarders. Not you and I, but the lesser peers of ours who were snowboarders. So maybe there was a little something to be like, all the rich people ski, and it's like, yeah, but he paid for your ski ticket too. Like here, you also got your lift ticket out of the same credit card.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I mean,
That's an interesting topic too, since we're on it, that I've and I know we've talked about this before, but it came up again to me of like how groups that are so close to each other to the point of being indiscernible from the outsider's eye are always where you get the most vitriol and the most hate to each other.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, let's take Yugoslavia as an example. For all intents and purposes, I couldn't, it'd be really hard to look at a Bosnian Muslim or a Christian Serb or an Albanian, but they know and they can tell. It's just like, oh, look at those dirty Muslims over there in the town over. It's like, you guys cannot tell the difference of you guys. And it's like, oh, we can. And I think that familiarity breeds hatred and contempt, right? And because, how do I say this semi nicely? I have heard a lot of really, really, really nasty racist things come from white people. You want to hurt the worst things I've ever heard are black people talking about other black people in New Orleans. It's like, oh my goodness, like don't ever let the white people hear what you guys just said, because it's like they're gonna take their hatred to a whole new level. And why? Because those people, like the black people in New Orleans that I was talking to, had a unique familiarity with the others that they were talking about. And I think it's the closeness that actually breeds the deepest hate, because if there's enough of a difference, it's easy to, oh, well, they're just different. But it's like, no, there's something not right about them over
It's
there.
very reminiscent of the Chris Rock bit of like, there's black people and there's N-words, like it's, I've heard a lot of drunken Tio conversations late at Easter where it's like they don't have two separate words, but it's a lot of conversations about this and that about Mexicans and the bad Mexicans and the good Mexicans.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from every race, creed, and color that I've had a couple beers with at some point.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's just the familiarity that breeds the hatred. And it's the same with skiers and snowboarders, right? It's all just a bunch of privileged people that can afford to take time out, like ski trips are really expensive. And I know that we've talked about this in a previous episode, like the days of our college ski trips, they're gone. I have a friend that took
I used to tell people that was one of the fun things about going to tech was that you could load up a car of kids, take off at 6 a.m. and be back by Monday and do a ski trip. And like,
for sure,
that's completely out of the question feasibly now.
It's so, I mean, like, just with
at least
ski
for
tickets,
the kids in my financial range that are going to
college. Yeah, but also if you think about what it cost now, like everyone's got, right, everyone except the federal government has to make choices with their money. I do, you do, and everyone else does. And if you look at, I was talking to somebody at the bar 3-4 nights ago, sometime in that time range, and we were watching the hockey game. And we're just talking. So they rented a place.
The game that all of us decided we cared about because we saw one ESPN clip about a fight over a national anthem.
Yep, that game.
And I'm not saying I'm above it. I also was upset the Canadians won at the end, even though I've watched 0 hockey games this decade.
Yeah, I watch the playoffs. My business partner is a big New York Rangers fan, so when the playoffs start and he's around, we'll watch hockey games together. But I was talking to this guy and just trying to figure out like what's the vacation cost, right? Just being nosy. to be fair, because it's none of my business what his vacation cost. But I am curious. And just by the time that you get rentals, you get your Airbnb, you take the time off from work, you spend the gas money to drive up here, you get the kids in ski school, you eat out, you buy groceries. I mean, it was going to be close to like a $7,000 trip.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. That is insane. Cause you and I used to like, we could like, if dude, you got $300 in your pocket, we were living large on a ski trip.
Right. Yeah, you could get away with a lot at 20 years old in the
For
mountains
sure.
of New Mexico with that kind of money. Riadosa going nuts. Yeah,
Yeah.
we used to go up on little ski trips to like in exchange for like painting somebody's winter home kind of thing, you know? And like, I mean, go up there with to your point, like not enough money to cover the ski trip and just figure it out.
Yeah,
We'll
for
be okay.
sure.
There are
Yeah.
enough people that are enough avenues in this town. Now they're all rich snobs that don't even live there, so you can't go bum your beer for the night off of the neighbor.
Yeah. It changed, you know? That's the problem. Things change. And you can never go back. And granted, I was like hindsight's 2020, right? I should have taken Bitcoin when people offered
Yeah, right.
me when to write their papers in college. I should have when I first moved up here, you could buy a condo for like $40,000.
Mm.
Not like a super nice condo, but a decent enough condo. Same condo today is going for 250,
Yeah, you
260,
couldn't get
275.
a porta potty up there for 40 grand now.
Yeah, actually, it's yeah, if you look in certain directions, it's going to cost you 40 grand up here now, and it makes you. It's like, well, one, I was a poor dirtbag, and so no bank is even going to give me $40,000 to,
Yeah.
buy a condo at that time. But I wish I would have had the hindsight. That's an interesting question. If you could roll back, call it 5 years, what are you changing? What are you not? Are you one of those like you're the sum total of all of the things that you do, and if you don't live the same life, then like like
I hate that answer every time I hear that. No, it's yeah, I think that's a cop out answer. Like
for sure.
I mean, sure, your experiences inform who you are, but you could also have better experiences throughout your life and maybe that were
Yeah,
more beneficial. Like there you
for sure.
guaranteed that you went through the best, you know.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, Bitcoin's a great one. I think a lot about how we covered uh Doge coin going up. And even we're recording podcast about it before it hit its peak and never bought any Dogecoin at that time. Like that was a simple one that like we were staring that one right in the face and I didn't take any action on that. So that was a
Yeah.
big boo-boo for sure. Um, you know what I think about a lot? I guess it's not even 5 years, but I definitely wish I would have pursued more entrepreneurial uh pursuits rather than spending a shit ton of money for a college degree. And even to
Mm,
the point of like it was so the focus on how important it was to get a college degree
for sure.
probably led me to spending more money to getting a college degree that I didn't even really need anyway. Because it was just like, well, I got a semester and a year and a semester left. I might as well spend another 10 grand and go into debt to get that piece of paper and then apply for jobs that don't even care about that piece of paper.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, that's
That's a
totally
big one.
fair. Yeah, I think about that too. About
That comes to
yeah,
mind.
like
There was what was the one I was just reading? Oh, this is, I guess we're having a tangent here. Please, why don't you
no,
give
no,
us
no,
your 5 years before I tangent
no,
us off?
it's kind of the same thing, right?
Financial stuff. Yeah, I wish I would have been smarter with my money
Yeah,
a lot.
I could have, and there are certain things like looking back that I know weren't good uses of my money that I wouldn't change in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So when like during the pandemic when I was still selling real estate, gladly went and like me and a buddy, we just loaded up the truck and it's like, well, we can work remote, so we'll come back when we come back. And we were on the road like 2, 3 weeks, and it was awesome. And looking back at it, it's like, man, I probably should have been a little bit more responsible with that money. And it's like, nah, it's
Get a
like
little loose.
probably exactly what I should have done. So, but
I
but the
find that a
thing,
lot. I find it difficult to be frugal in a celebratory environment or a time seeing old friends type of thing. I can definitely get myself into some like, well, this is in to your point, not that I feel necessary regret. I might feel some stress on the back end of like, damn, I spent too much money. Now I've got to have to pinch the belt a little bit. But
Yeah,
I do think that there is something to be said about like it is more important to have a fucking blast when you're with the people you love that you don't get to see all the time than it is
for
to
sure.
save another $300 on this night out, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. There's sort of like money is one of those things like yeah, it at a certain point like it literally does buy happiness because it provides you the stability and the basics that allow you to be a human with but at a certain point, like at
Yeah,
that.
it's I think I heard a really well way that was put one time that it's like money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy comfort. It's really hard to be happy when you're uncomfortable.
Yes, for sure. I
It's,
agree with that. Yeah, I
it's a
agree
decent
100%.
habit.
Yeah, and
Uh
it's like you don't want to be destitute. Anyways, what's your tangent?
I was thinking about last episode we had asked like what are the things we're going to look back at and think that we're Luddites in the future.
Okay.
And one that kind of was like really popping in my head is like once everybody's hooked up to the Neuralink and has their brain directly hooked up to the internet, can you imagine how stupid they're going to think we were? That like we were just
Interesting.
making life decisions based on gut feelings and
Right.
instinct. Like, are you
These
fucking kidding me? You
these
didn't even
impulses.
like. I heard that they used to have access to the internet on these devices they carried around, and sometimes they wouldn't even take the time to type the question into that first. They would just make a decision.
Interesting. Huh. I wonder I wonder at that point, like that raises some really interesting like futuristic or futurology um debates and ethical questions because don't get me wrong, I think that there's going to be some great uses for the Neuralink. The people
For
that
sure.
were paralyzed and were never going. I think that's going to do a lot of awesome things for some people, but that's like, come on, like we can't let Uncle Elon, like we can't let him have an implant to all of our brains. Like that only solidifies his. At that
That is a
point, like
big.
he wins the super bit. Like he
Yeah, you
is,
got us.
yeah, for sure. Like you won. There will be no resistance. It will not be televised. Like we're
It's
done.
just once it hits like 50% of the population, everybody just goes, and they're like, please come with me for your Neuralink appointment.
for,
I'm going to help you
for sure.
implant yours now, sir.
Yeah.
Bunch of Elon zombies.
And yeah, and that's like I hate the idea of a future where the mass population has some sort of implant like that because it's not good. It's definitely it makes I've been going through the old dystopian novels that I'd never read. Like I read 1984. It's kind of the classic that you have to start with, but I'd never read Brave New World. So I'm reading that one right now. And some of the things in that book, you're like,
Hmm.
man, these were supposed to be warnings, and they turned out to be playbooks. Like
Yeah,
maybe
right.
maybe it was better if these books weren't written because these people, they were attempting to do something very good and warn us of the a possible future. And now some of the things that are in those books, like, oh man, they got
Somebody
that
just
idea straight from this.
picked
Like
this
they
up.
took that and it's like we gave them the playbook. It was supposed to be a warning. They're like, actually, that's a great idea. I'm just gonna wrap that one up and sell it as fascism.
That's pretty good. I wonder if there's a little like chicken or the egg type of thing there because there has always
Mm,
been a long history of sci-fi kind of informing science in the future.
fair.
And so it's I don't know, and it's I'm sure there's a mix of like prophetic vision and also just kind of smart people watching the way science is moving.
Sure.
Um, like 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, it's like a sci-fi novel. When was that even written? But it's
Late
essentially it's a
1800s, right? Let's see.
10,000 Leagues.
But yeah, the
Under the
idea of a
Sea.
submarine.
Right. I want to figure out exactly what it is. I'm just curious now. It was 1807
Oh shit, early
was
1800s,
first sub.
1900s.
That's how stupid we are. Oh, well, that says 1602. That's a very
Well, first
rudimentary submarine,
submarine.
though. That is
Oh,
a
I'm
yeah.
talking about like
That's an enclosed rowboat.
yeah, no. I need like an actual submarine that I can sink passenger vessels.
Right.
I need to be able to
Oh,
commit war crimes for it to actually be a
harder to hide.
submarine.
Oh, I saw a history of submarines.
Well, I mean, they had them in World War One, so
They've
probably
got
late
some
1800s.
old historical accounts of them in Thebes back in 1413 BC, apparently.
Huh.
That sounds more like a diving bell. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. I need to be able to commit war crimes. That's the
Early modern submarines.
I'm gonna go with 1897.
You're about 100 years off according to Wikipedia, but again, this is like it's a diving bell with a propeller on it. Submarine, we're
Yeah.
kind of pushing. When do we get to like a legit?
When can I use submarines for warfare? That's
Maybe I'll just Google that. When were submarines
first used in war.
war?
That's not.
1776 during the
I
American
saw
Revolution.
that. It's maybe. Well, huh? Maybe we've got a.
It says, well, used for an unsuccessful attack on British warships.
See, that doesn't count. Like, I need to be able to torpedo a passenger boat. That's
submarine to fire
all
torpedo.
right. Now I'm on Wikipedia. Human-powered submarines.
So 1886 is when they started firing torpedoes.
Okay, there we go. That's a torpedo at that point.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Yeah. Okay.
By the Ottomans, those cockroaches in Turkey figured it out
damn
first.
Turks, huh? How'd they figure that out?
A concealed air bubble underneath the aquatic environment. Maybe that is a spot for a cockroach. I actually have zero like practical proximity to anybody Turkish in my life at any given time or know anything about their culture, but I do find it hilarious that Greeks exclusively refer to them as cockroaches.
Yeah, I would too if I were the Greeks. I'd be really upset about.
Isn't there kind of a thing too where they're like the Ottomans are a little closer to like, well, us or the Turks, I guess, or like, well, us and the Greeks are kind of the same thing, and the Greeks are like, no, you're not.
No, we're not. It's like, yeah, you guys are kind of the same.
You're pretty close.
You guys are pretty
close. A lot
of
similar conquest lines throughout all of history.
At a certain point, like one of you guys went Muslim, the other went Eastern Orthodox. Yeah. But come on, you guys are kind of the same in a lot of ways.
People hating themselves so much that are damn close to each other.
I mean, I saw Troy. Those guys in Troy, they were pretty white, just like the Greeks.
I mean, that's one thing they do tend to ignore when they're like, well, it's Turkey, so like Africa, basically. And you're like, yeah, or all of the prodigies of Alexander the Great and the Macedonians that ran through there. Like that, those were the empires that stayed after.
For sure.
And they were nice about incorporating Persians into their culture for the most part. But, all those guys with the general names that were running armies all over the place were
they're pretty Greek.
Greece.
Yeah. The Ptolemy Empire of Egypt. That's the thing where the newest Cleopatra spinoff, she was like really black. Like she's like South Sudanese black. And I just try to be somewhat historically accurate. I don't need you to be 100. Like you don't have to like perfect like typecast people. But come on, like Cleopatra's Greek, and her whole family was Greek. And there's no like dark Nubian princess. Like, come on, she's olive. I'm not gonna say she's white, because like Greeks really aren't that white in a lot of ways. No, they're definitely like considered part of Western Europe and the good Europeans. But they're olive skinned.
There's an odd tradition of that, of like even the misrepresentation, and it goes both ways where like they're like Greek heritage, she was a white chick, and you're like, there's a lot of if you guys saw a Greek chick in your conservative white supremacist club, you probably wouldn't call that a white chick. Like you're claiming all the good stuff. Like that's an interesting one. Western chivalry culture and all those Proud Boys groups, they really like to point back to Rome and Greece, and it's like those guys didn't become white until like 1900s America.
The Italians weren't white till World War II. When we need the mafia to help.
Okay, they became white when it really helped out your white supremacy argument. But
for sure, but the Italians weren't white till World War II. We need the mafia's help. In Sicily and for sure. It's like you guys, they were not white the entire time.
But even the other way, we're like, I've seen things where people were like hand-wringing about Hannibal Barca being represented as an olive-skinned man instead of an African man like he is, and it's like, they're like Phoenician though, right? Like Jewish people, like Semitic cultures.
They're olives, you know what I mean? They're light-skinned
Yeah.
brothers.
Yeah, they're
Lighter than
Mediterranean.
lighter than me though. I'm a dark-skinned brother compared to them, but a
Sicily,
little
maybe.
I'm still pretty dark for Sicily, you know.
The
I
burbs
got
didn't
the
do.
I could probably pass as like like Moorish Spanish, you know. So the other night I was talking the same person I was talking at the bar, and he said that he was Spanish, and I was like, "Are you Spanish before or after the Moors?" And I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, and he just kind of he looked at me and was like, "What a wasted joke." It's like I thought that was. It's like what a nice
The
try to
wrong
do. It's
audience.
like, are you? It's like you say that you're white, but are you really white, or are you white after the darks got a hold of your peninsula for 500 years? but nothing. Didn't just he just like, what? It's like swing and a
Give you
miss.
nothing. It's unfortunate. That's a very like trait in people I have trouble getting along with and not getting along with as in like can't be in the same room with, but just like
Sure.
having a beer with after work kind of thing. It's like, I don't know. You got to have a sense of humor. Haven't you realized that this is all incomprehensibly fucked beyond recognition and that we should at least have a good time while we're here?
For sure. The world is chaos. The least we can do is laugh about it.
Yeah, let's have a smile here and there while we think about Elon Musk implanting computer chips in all of our brains so that we're not the dumb kid on the block anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's like a way to switch it. And like Logan and I have both been really, really busy this week, so we've done literally zero prep. And as you can tell, as we've just meandered around for 30 minutes. But I titled this episode Burnout,
I saw
and
that.
I think that it's kind of an accurate description of what's going on kind of across the board because I was looking, I have all these newsletters I read some Substacks, I listen to these podcasts, listen to these shows. And this last week, I've just been like, I don't really care. I don't know what happened this week. Like, well, who did Elon piss off? What's Trump like? And there's some things that I've kind of like tangentially know that's going on, but I really felt burned out this week with all it's just moving so much so
Mhm.
fast. And I wondered too about just how long, right? Like how long can the outrage train roll? Because it's gonna people that they're gonna run out of steam. Like I think I'm not like 100% cheering everything on, but I am more stoked than not about what's going on. And even I'm like, cool.
Yeah, no
Who
matter
cares?
how hot the fire burns, you still need fuel. And I almost feel like the shock value of Trump is gone. So even though
Mhm.
we're seeing enough grasping still from the left and opposition to everything he's doing, there's almost just not enough of a reaction for it to get any kind of legs to it in the media. Like I
Yeah.
don't feel like we're hearing nearly as much as we did in 2016 about the evils of Trump, and maybe part of it's too that they've used all their trump cards at this point of Russian collusion and grab her by the pussy. And it's like, I don't know, what are you going to say? You called him a Nazi for 4 years and the popular vote of America reelected him. So like,
For sure. So either
what
we're all Nazis
words?
or that
Yeah.
that word
Which way
has
can it go?
right one of the two. Like, well, I guess either America's full of Nazis or you guys have used up
Dude,
your
that
capital.
on that subject, that might be the most depressing group after this election are the people who haven't let go of that like white hot burning indignation of Donald Trump, while the rest of the left has kind of like taken a step back or at least been fatigued by it. And there's certain people that like are still having the outburst moments, and then it's just being met with like indifference from the room, and it's almost
Right.
like, ugh. Like I was at a Super Bowl party and somebody said something and something dumb happened, and they were like, "Well, that's Trump's America for you. How stupid it is." And it just kind of got like everybody just kind of like glanced over and glanced back at the TV and just silence in the room and like an awkward 5-second pause in the conversation. And it was just
Right.
like,
I was like,
"Ooh, that did not land this time." That would have been a killer joke in Super Bowl 48. But today,
Yep, not today. There was when when at the Super Bowl party I was at when they showed Donald Trump at the start, the room fucking started cheering. And there's a bunch of
I
and there's a
definitely
bunch
wasn't
of
at that Super
people
Bowl party.
there was a bunch of people that I didn't know they were the family of the hostess. And I was not expecting cheer, just like first glances looking at them. I was not ready for the cheers for Donald Trump coming from them. I was like, oh,
That's
okay. I
another
guess
interesting
I guess
part of
that's
it.
one of the. I guess we're in this room now.
And kind of to that same point, like the level of comfort people have now, uh, doing the cheers, and even like I consume a lot of stand up comedy. I love stand up, and just the crowd noise of like 4 years ago, 8 years ago, somebody would say something positive about Trump and the whole room boo, or you just bring up Trump's name and it would bring up, and like now you still get your boos, but it's way less of the crowd, and there's 5 or 6 people going woo, like hell yeah, let's fucking go, and it's like ooh, and it really has been like staggering the boos too, because you get like this boo and then you get woo and the boos go
Right.
woo and they all turn and
Yeah,
go like,
boo,
oh, I guess he's
boo,
a fan.
boo, boo.
But
Very
yeah,
quiet.
you can feel the air of the Trump deranged. I mean, we and maybe prematurely called that, but Michael Malice was talking about the breaking of the Trump derangement syndrome
Mm,
fever, and we were parroting that on the show as well. Like it's still, I don't know that it's gone, but there might be something to that. The fever has broken, and we're dealing with symptoms still, but there's not
yeah.
that underlying burn that I feel from the first
No.
time around.
No, there's not, and that was I don't know if you read that James Carville article that I was talking about earlier, but he essentially started this whole thing. I think last week he was on Dan Abrams' show, and he made and for those like the uninitiated, James Carville is a Democratic strategist who successfully helped Bill Clinton win in '92 and then survive his Lewinsky scandal and get reelected in '96. And he's been a longtime Democratic strategist. Sometimes some days better than others, And it seems and like I kind of viewed a lot of what he said through that filter of like, oh, you're just remembering the glory days. And it's like it's like now you're just grasping at straws, old man. The future is now. And but he said on that show that the Trump administration was 4 to 6 weeks from a complete collapse. And I was like, well, that's a little like optimistic, you know what I mean? It's like, it's
Yeah,
like that.
this entire revolution of the Republican Party, where
It's
they're,
just
all the old rhinos that used to run it are still like up in arms about this new horrible regime that's come in and completely turned the voting populace, and it's like, I don't know, that's just going to collapse now.
right. And
Neocons got it back.
he cited that it's like his approval ratings are low and yada yada. But also it's like, I don't know, that Harvard Harris poll that was just released, it's like this got a lot of support. It's like 78% of the people polled were down with his immigration policy and deep mass deportation. You know what I mean? It's like there wasn't a single policy in that poll that was underwater. And so to think that, oh, you're just going to collapse. And in that op-ed, just real quick for the summary, he said that Democrats should pull a rope-a-dope. Essentially, it's like we can't beat George Foreman in the first round, so we've got to wait till the 8th, and we come springing out of nowhere and land the big punch, and we're going to save the country after Republicans mess it up. So what Democrats need to do is play possum. To which I was like, you have so like
And for the next 12 years.
yeah, for what the next 2-4 years, and it kind of it almost looks like trying to spin the lack of apathy or the lack of energy, the complete apathy, the um total collapse and malfunction of the democratic establishment as oh, well, we can use this strategy to our example. We'll feign retreat and we'll hit them like what after they break ranks, and then we're going to turn and pull a brilliant charge. Like, no, you guys are routed, and you just you haven't accepted that your lines have collapsed yet. And so it struck me as very delusional in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's an odd take. I mean, that does sound like a sounds like good political speak to me.
Mm,
Like we never actually lost this. Don't lose faith in our party, because that is, I mean, the entire purpose of it is to kind of sell you this false bill of confidence and
For
these people
sure.
who are fleecing you of all of your money, in my mind, in my opinion, in
Agreed.
order to elect them to be your leaders and decide how all of your money and your culture is pushed forward. Um, yeah, that's really interesting and quite a reach of confidence, I would say, to assume that. I mean, again, I fully expect the Republicans to find a way to fuck this up
Oh, they
eventually,
will. Oh, they
but
will.
like you said, like his approval ratings are so down. And it's like, yeah, but when he turns around and has the ability to look, here's all these things I'm going to fix from the Democratic Party that they fucked up, and 78% of Americans can get on board with it. It's like they got a lot of cachet to work with here,
For
guys. They've
sure.
they've built up some trust in the public. And not even they built it up. You built up their trust in the
Yeah,
public.
exactly. You have given them so much leeway and energy that yeah, you have you they like the, the Trump administration has such a long runway because of the Democrats. And it was just one of those articles that um it was interesting, right? It's not worth talking about much more than what we have, but I just thought it was because the thing about it is like that's nice if you can actually feign your retreat, maintain some semblance of order, right? Sell, but feigned retreats sometimes just end up as full blown routes. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, oh well, we'll just fight this little rear guard action, and we'll keep, and we're going to turn around. And when you turn around, you just get popped, and it's like,
Yep.
oh my god, nobody have to run.
Oh, the cavalry's here. Oh shit.
Right? It's like, oh, we weren't expecting that. We expected orderly lines, or disorderly lines. Like, oh my god, you guys are right here, very
Formed
organized.
up. Those
Um,
phalanx really stayed right together, didn't they?
right on our ass, yeah. And I wonder if and I know I've said this before, but I don't think the Democrats fully understand how bad they've lost. I don't think that they are still in shock. They've been shot, and it has not occurred to them that there's a gaping hole in their leg. They still think that they're in control. They're still in the fight, and it's like, no, you got to actually like, you better put a tourniquet on that pretty soon, because you're losing blood, and just because you don't understand that you're not losing blood doesn't stop the effects of losing blood from taking their toll here pretty soon. So it's like you should probably put a tourniquet on that.
I wonder too, like, I mean, I almost think it's going to take a complete messaging overhaul from the Democrats at this point because they had this attrition problem essentially where there were so many ancillary groups that didn't really have any political alignment other than kind of preaching the woke thing of like,
Mm.
well, everything's the white man's fault and the Republican Party is the party of white men. And then you have to deal with inconvenient truths like Candace Owens out there and like young black men moving towards the Republican Party.
Okay,
And
Ramaswamy, yeah.
yeah, and the message gets harder. And then you have things like Israel Gaza come up. And you have very strong proponents of both sides of that argument. So then now you have this like, which train track do you pick? Do you choose Gaza and piss off the larger majority, or do you choose Israel and keep all of your political funding? It's
And not get primaried.
But yeah, there's like, I mean, it's how many of those little inside the party battles can you have before people inside this coalition decide they're actually not buddies anymore? Or
Yeah.
you got betrayed by your party, so you're not voting Democrat anymore. I'm going Green Party now. And it's just like, how do you rebuild that?
Yeah.
The cat's out of the bag at this point. We've already seen what's inside and that it's a false bill. And it's like, are you gonna go back to racial politics and convince everybody that white men are the problem again after
Sure.
the poster boy for everything that you're saying is wrong on the other side, the rich white blonde guy with the foreign wife who's 70 years younger than him just got elected by popular vote to be the president of the United States? Like, oh, you guys got a large hill to climb to get back on top of that one.
For sure. And saying that Joy Reid got fired because she's black is not going to get you there.
Did you see the numbers that her show was doing?
I never looked at the numbers. I knew that her ratings weren't good.
She was pulling about 40,000 people
a night.
A night.
Oh, that's not good.
That's not good at all.
Oh, that's not good at all.
if she quadrupled that
Oh,
number, it wouldn't be a good
it's
number.
not great.
It
Not in
would
the
keep you
world
on
of, like
television
but in the world of, like,
currently.
network television, it's ratings are supreme. It's
Yeah.
Matt, it's like it either sells and it's interesting or it's not. And well, MSNBC's probably lost a lot of money and a lot of viewers for they took a gamble. And that's the world that we live in. Not all my gambles pay off. Sometimes I gamble and I lose and it sucks. And MSNBC gambled and they lost. And I think that what we're seeing is kind of the breakup because it's easy to have right alliances and coalitions, and this is something that we can spin to like look forward kind of in like this like very uneasy merging of libertarians and republicans, right? It's an uneasy piece, and I think it's the like what we're seeing in the Democratic Party is the same thing that you see after
Like
World War
a
II.
bunch of libertarians like huddled up ready for the RNC convention. Like, all right, guys, just don't talk about pot or gay marriage, and we think we can have a spot.
Right. And it's like what we're seeing is like the Democratic Party is experiencing what happens after World War II, right? Once you lose your enemy, it's like, yeah, America and Russia, not friends. I mean, we sent troops to fight in the Civil War to make sure the communists didn't win. It is like we are not friends. However, we don't like Hitler more. So we're on your side for now. But it was like we were never friends. We were never more than allies of opportunity.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
once the common foe was vanquished, well, now there's nothing to keep you together. And it's just the age old politics, right? After when in a like a three tier dominant geopolitical world, two team up to beat one. Well, now your biggest competitor is the same guy that you just teamed up with to beat, and naturally, tension. It's just the age old geopolitic triangle, and it sucks. And I wonder though, like what we could learn looking forward with like the Republican libertarian merge. And I know that there are people that hate it and scream about it, and I'm skeptical as based as some of these things are, and as much as I can cheer them on, I'm still skeptical about many things. And I wonder, like, are we capable of actually learning now that we're winning, or are we going to be so blinded by winning and be such poor winners that we
End
forget
up
all of
eating.
the lessons, and then like we create the coalition, we become the enemy that the coalition forms up around, and in how long until the culture just is so tired of us, or how long until the split happens, right? Because if you take that same analogy in this kind of three-tier system, the Democratic Party's been beaten, so now
Yeah.
you have this, well, and not that Republicans don't look at libertarians as like a true power threat,
Yeah, they don't
but
they don't actually believe we're part of the party.
exactly. And so, but that's kind of what I'm getting at is how long does this dance go on, right? Because
Mhm.
to Republicans, we're not the party.
I mean, hey,
Um,
it is nice right now to see in this system where I would have always sworn my entire life that both political parties have the same end goal in mind, and that they were ostensibly just manipulated by the same group, whether that's the CIA or the lizards underneath the crust of the earth,
oh shoes.
or the. Uh, it's refreshing to see this Republican Party that's at least informed by libertarian principles, rather than simply preaching libertarian principles and then
To a
ignoring them
degree.
once they're elected, which is what they typically the Republican Party's been about. Is like, here's all these cool libertarian ideas. Don't they sound great? Okay, we're not doing any of that. We're going to war with everybody around the world.
Right.
There's actually a strong push right now for less government, like an actionable push. Like, we're cutting parts of government, which has never happened in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And there's at least some talks of anti-war. We'll see if we actually get
We'll
around to
see.
that. I'm
We'll see.
not holding my breath until we actually start pulling some troops back. But it's refreshing that there's at least one of those two options, despite them both being hellscapes. One of them's doing some of the things I think we need to do in order to fix this country.
Yeah, it's an uneasy peace. And maybe peace isn't the right word, but it's an uneasy victory. Like, the war's not won. I don't know if you ever, like, fully win the war of culture and empires, right? Like, eventually you're gonna lose. It's gonna fall one day, you know? One day the Visigoths get behind the lines, and Rome's just never the same after that. And you can try to rebuild it and all the different spin-offs, but you're just never Rome again. Um, and I think the same probably applies here. So it's these are uneasy victories because how long do they last, right? And at what
That's a
point
good way to
do
put it.
the
And I wonder
things
how
that
long before we start, like to your point of the infighting and the battles, like obviously the neocon right, in their minds, we are partnering or using libertarian values to draw in this large independent class to win this election. But they don't have any intention of following through with more of those promises, and they have to that they're not interested in doing themselves. So
sure.
here now, that's a really good point. This becomes the era of like, is there truly a philosophical revamp of the Republican Party towards more libertarian principles and actually being about less government and tromping all over the world with our troops? Or are we going to watch the neocons simply wrestle this back away from the libertarians and do what they wanted to do the entire time? And we do get something closer to this Project 2025 where all the lefts are afraid of, where sure, we cut all these things up front, but in 2 years, Trump just kind of re-amalgamates all the same positions and puts Republicans in charge.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know, and maybe time will tell, right? And that I wonder too, like how, and that's the hardest thing, right? In real time, it's very very difficult to see, and that's why like sometimes you need the passage of time, and you need 20 years to pass before historians can look back and start to actually decipher all of the different trails and the events and what led to it, because I wonder, like,
You're
is
80
there
years old screaming at your grandkids.
you
If we would have given him a third term, it wouldn't be as gay out here.
yeah, right. It's it because I do wonder how much of this is, and it's not to say that it's hard to like like excuse me, I'm having tough time formulating this idea. The lines are very fine, right? Is it that the Republican Party captured libertarians, or did certain aspects of libertarianism seep into the Republican Party and are now actually staples? And the two are different. I know they kind of sound they have similar results, but they are different in the approaches. And the approach matters in the longevity of it, right? If certain libertarian values trickled into the Republican Party, things like no more forever wars, George Bush lied us in, you know, and I hear that now. I hear staunch card carrying Republicans be like, war bad, not down with it anymore. George Bush is a son of a bitch.
Unfortunately, there's still a lot of Republicans I hear too that are like, war is bad. We got to stop the forever wars. Well, Putin's going to conquer the world if we don't stop him in Ukraine.
Sure, yeah.
And you're like, I don't think the message sank in yet.
Yeah, and that's totally fair, right? And it's one of those things like, I don't know, the 1900s called. They want their foreign policy back. Like this, the thought of like if Ukraine falls, what's to stop Russia? I don't know.
Yeah.
NATO, like
How
actually,
about it took them 3 years to take Kiev and they never even got it? Like,
they haven't even taken Kiev. I mean,
they're going to make it to Spain tomorrow if we back out?
for sure.
Do
And
you really think
also,
that's possible?
yeah, and yeah, it's like I don't know that whole like NATO defense thing. And there's a difference. It's one thing to invade Ukraine. It's a whole nother thing to roll troops in the Baltics.
Right.
Those are two fundamentally different things. And everyone's like, well, if we don't stand up for Ukraine, and so to your point, there is that we have to fight the war because it's a righteous war, and also Israel, go you, bomb those dirty Palestinians into the Stone Age and let them all die of the preventable diseases because we bombed the help convoy going into, and we kill more journalists. It's like, did you know that it's like the most dangerous year to be a journalist? It's like 122 journalists have died in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's a lot of
Wow.
journalists.
That's pretty wild. I wonder if that has to do with just kind of the way they're not so observant of international conduct on the battlefield with medics getting shot a lot. Maybe that's a little bit of it.
I
Not
think
wanting the
there's
message to get out.
Yeah, I think there's And right, who knows all of the details? I know that there are some pointed
Or
stories where it's like,
is
oh, I
this
think they probably killed that journalist.
is this a little bit of a self-inflicted injury where our Jewish friends decided they wanted to conquer our media class, and now that they're over in Gaza and they can't tell the difference between any of them?
Yeah, right. It's
You
it's
look like all the
oh,
combatants. Sorry.
right. Sorry about that. It's like we actually don't look that. No, that's a fair point. But like back to the point. I
All
was trying
jokes,
to.
by the way, of Jews controlling all the media. I only kind of believe that.
We only like partially, mostly believe that. But it does make you wonder, like how long some of these changes will last, and how long the energy keeps going. Because I mean, all of the libertarian pages that I follow pretty much are just like, cool, go Trump. There's still
Right.
some naysayers out there, but for the most part, everyone's like, yeah, this is good. We're okay. And maybe this is the dance that we have to play as people that love liberty. Because it's like I may be in a post-libertarian Logan self prescribed MAGA light type space now, but I love liberty the most, and I am and there's I see the potential for the abuses against my liberty that Donald Trump is doing.
Yeah.
And I think we should always keep that in mind. But also maybe it's like, I don't know, if you're winning, do you just take the wins and then hope that one day it's not that bad? Or like how do you play the
There's a good
dance
like
going forward?
Bolsheviks or French Revolution analogy in here, where like I'm sure they felt like they were winning up until the point their heads were putting in a guillotine.
Yeah, no
Like
doubt.
we had it for a second. What happened? I thought we
For
were
sure.
winning this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, for sure.
I'm sure, and we will definitely see a strong attempt from the neoconservatives of trying to take it back to the Bush era, and that's a big part. And that to me is the most disgusting thing, is the left praising and holding up the Liz Cheney neocons of the world because they're
Not the
anti-Trump,
flex you
and
think.
it's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
do you understand the trap you're falling into? That everything the left stood for my entire life, you're abandoning on the request of the most evil people in the world that implemented every one of those
For
things that you
sure.
said the right was evil for, to hate the guy that's replacing them.
Mhm.
Like, that's so insane to me that you
Well, it
can't have
shows
this cognitive dissonance enough to be like, oh, wait, all of the worst human beings in the world, of all of the wars that I was
for
against my
sure.
entire life, are all against this guy. Maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, and I think it shows the lack of principle, or even even the shredded intellectual consistency. Because if you think it's one of like Dick Cheney being on your side is not the flex that you think it is. The rest of us, right? When you say, well, even Dick Cheney is against Donald Trump, it's like that's just like Zelensky saying, I don't know where $100 billion went. It's not the
Yeah,
message you think that
that's
you're
not
getting
what you think you're
across.
telling us.
You were sending the exact wrong message. In fact, it's like, yeah, I'm go Trump. If Dick
Especially
Cheney's against him,
after like
then
the tone deafness to say that too, of like, did you not just see where the Republican Party completely changed its opinion on those people? Like, that's they still have power because they're the older guard and they're holding a lot of positions of power, and they're the most well funded by Lockheed Martin and Chase Morgan and JP
yeah.
Morgan, and the whoops. Oh, that was great. I'm just gonna say it for anybody who's not getting the video feed right now. Matt very timely tapped his nose when I started naming all the fundings and political candidates. Hilarious visual joke. But there's definitely something to be said for like the entire Donald Trump movement. Even if he doesn't believe this himself, the lying you into wars was a big part of what started the momentum change, or at
Sure.
least capitalized on what had already been started momentum wise. But that is a huge part of what led to them winning the popular vote. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that they turned around and started listening to what their actual constituency was saying this entire time, the things that they were begging for, that they were hoping the Republican Party actually had any inkling of following through on. And a little insider trading here, they didn't have any plan on following through with any of that. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, because that old guard is also in a very disadvantageous position when all of the young people, this new generation that's supposed to be way more right wing and all, they didn't get it from the neocons. They got it
Right.
from going, why are we going into wars everywhere? Why is my free speech being challenged? Why am I evil just because I was a white kid born here? What is all this race politics? When,
Mhm.
it was all of those things, which are all what, even if he doesn't believe in himself, it's what Donald Trump capitalized on. And the votes that he got that put him in the office of presidency twice were those votes, not the
For
neocon
sure.
votes.
Yeah, and I think that, and maybe this goes on because I know we've talked about this a lot in the group thread, but I don't think I fully understand how much the culture has actually shifted. I still think I'm trying to catch up with it because, to your point, right? The younger kids, they're Republicans. Like, people that are coming into the Republican Party now are not your grandfather's Republicans. They're not our father Republicans. They are a completely different type of Republican. One that's, Ronald, like if Ronald Reagan is, he's rolling his grave. And good. Like, I hope eternal unrest for you in your grave, sir. It's like he's rolling in his grave about what has happened to his beloved Republican Party. And I say that because you're talking about all of the younger people and the populist movement. I think about, in relation to the confirmations, I think there's a bunch of Republicans that were very not down with RFK, Tulsi, Kash
Except
Patel, Hegseth. I think there was way more behind the scenes oppositions than we were ever let on to know. And I saw glimpses of it in the RFK confirmation. The senator from Louisiana, I want to say his name's Cassidy. He was somebody that was not going to support RFK. And then one day he gets up, well, RFK's agreed to report back to me and keep me in the loop. It's like, okay, cool. So you were threatened to be primaried, is all I heard. You're up for re-election in 2 years, and you probably got a phone call and said you will fall in line, or the GOP is we're going to make sure that you lose your seat. And I think that kind of, when people say where's the Republican bastion against Donald Trump? Oh, they were threatened to be primaried and they caved. Like the bastion does not exist. That's what happened to. And that, I think that just is an example of how, and I say this to me, like, I'm still trying to understand how fully things have shifted, where you can now threaten senators to confirm people that 4 years ago, there's no way they could have ever been confirmed, especially 8 years ago. Like, first, you know what I mean? Like, the Overton window has definitely shifted, and to be like, and you couldn't threaten those people, but now the Republican Party is so much Donald Trump's party that all you have to do is like, you will confirm everybody that I want, or you will be primaried. And it's like, you will be up for a re-election and we'll make sure that you lose. Do you like your nice cushy job making 200 something $1,000 a day for 40 days of work? Do you like all of your kickbacks from lobbyists? Do you like taking a $250,000 salary and becoming a 10 to 20 to 30 millionaire by the time your 12 years are over? Well, then you will fucking vote to confirm Kash Patel, or I will make sure that you don't make another penny with all of this legal corruption that we have. And it's very powerful.
how surprised were you that all those got through? I
Not
mean, it
that
was the only one that got turned back was old plastic surgery face.
well, he never got confirmed. Yeah, he dropped out early,
Right.
Matt Gates.
Gates.
That have you seen that video of the Tucker Carlson interview with him, where he's asking him about the allegations, and Tucker Carlson goes, "You're accused of having like relations with a 17-year-old girl," and Matt Gates comes back, 17-year-old woman, instantly. And Tucker Carlson's
Not in
face as
this
he
county.
looks at it, like, and I think that might be
Good
one of
Lord.
those moments where Tucker saw, like, it's when like he gives the same, like, you don't know who my father is look that he gives all of the time, but there's more to it this time. There was something in the eyes of the "you don't know who my father is" look that he's like, oh, maybe these guys are like, maybe I'm like on the wrong team here.
Ooh, this guy's wearing my jersey. Yeah, yuck. Jesus. Yeah, what a
But
fucking way to answer that question.
yeah,
Huh?
that's like, yeah, he instantly 17-year-old woman. You're like, oh, that's a real interesting argument that you're going to make there, sir. But to your question, I am not surprised that they all got confirmed. At a certain point, I did think that they all would. Um, I expected there to be a little bit more backlash and a little bit more dissent. Not a ton of dissent, but I thought that there was going to be some 49-51 votes, some 50-50 with tiebreakers. And I mean, everyone fell in line except Mitch McConnell on one vote, which I think says everything that you need to know. All of these old serving Republican senators that nope, everyone fell in line.
I wonder how much of that's exactly on the grander scale what you just said of like, have they not grasped the pendulum swing yet? Where they're, it seemed like when you got the Tulsi's, the Hegseths, there was a lot of stuff right away that came up.
Oh yeah.
But by the time it came time to have the vote, you didn't really hear a lot about that anymore. It all kind of died down. So I wonder if maybe that was them testing the water. They're like, hey, let's go run these guys out of here and get our rhinos in. And they looked around the room and went like, ooh.
Yeah, right.
Ooh,
it's like, oh,
this is a losing battle.
Interesting. People actually, but I mean, can we be fair? Americans stopped caring about sex scandals with Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand. Like, do I support that? No, like some of these people are pieces of shit for running around on their wives and
well, there's
cheating
that as
on
well
their,
as that by default, I've already assumed every one of these people are, until the list comes out and proves otherwise, they're all pedophiles in my mind, you know? So when you're out there and you're like, well, Hegseth drinks a lot, I'm like, these are the worst human beings of every subset of human culture that you could select, like our senators and congressmen. Like, I don't know. I kind of think that might be the worst types of people that you could put in a room together.
It's
so like, how many of these people, if the CIA really didn't want them in there, how many of them could they find sex scandals on? I bet it's a high percentage.
Dude, it's always like Americans, we don't care about it. Warren Hardin had a mistress that lived in with the White House. Marilyn Monroe used the basement. You know, it's like it's a thing.
JFK used the back door though.
Hey-o. I will not say this on air. We'll let that one pass, but I'm gonna
I can't wait to hear what's so bad that you wouldn't say it on the air.
Make a little note for that one.
Jot that down.
Talk about later. But out of all the things that you want to question people about, like, why would you go about like, oh, he drinks a lot and he cheats on his wife? Yeah, sure. Like he's a piece of shit.
Stuff.
You know, like but when you said like, he drinks a lot, my first thought is like,
we just elected the Nazi. What are you talking about?
For sure. Well, I was thinking is like, to your point is like they're all like pedophiles and stuff. I was like, well, like, does he drink adrenochrome at night with the rest of them? It's like, oh, he just drinks booze. Oh, that's fine. Like, oh, you mean he's just a womanizing booze drinker? Well, that's way better than the guy that tortures children for their
red-blooded American.
It's like, that's way better than the rest of you guys. So it's like, I'll take that. I guess I'll take the cheating booze drinker because the rest of you guys like torture children to drink their glands and.
Yeah, I have no faith in any of you not being all absolute pieces. It seems like every time one of you falls out of line with the ruling class, that all this stuff comes out about you. So I kind of think it's safe to assume that most of you kind of have this going on. It's and I know I've brought this up to the point of exhaustion, but it's the old Bill Cosby, Eddie Murphy thing, you know, that I don't like the thing of like, ew, you listen to Michael Jackson's music because it's like, I don't know. You listen to John Mayer's. How many kids has he touched? We have no idea. It might be way more than Michael Jackson. He might be
I hope not.
Piece of shit, you know.
I hope not. I like John Mayer.
I think, to be fair to John Mayer, he gets enough primo pussy that he's not too worried about it.
Yeah.
Have sex with every celebrity ex-wife in the world, so that's a pretty good niche. It seems like him and Pete Davidson are occupying right now.
That's not bad gig, but yeah.
You know, side note here. this is a working theory I have of mine. And I've always been on the side of comedy and comedians, and therefore on the side of Pete Davidson. But as I've like watched the women that he did sexually pleasure after their divorces, there is like a large drop off rate of women who just like don't do so good in life right after that, like either health wise or career wise or psychologically wise. Like there might be something to this theory of like Pete Davidson's ruining women. I need to dive deeper into it before I.
Do you think that he's like a? Do you think he's like what's the male version of a succubus? Is it incubus? You think he's one of those? Do you think he's like a? You think he's a male demon just out here leeching the souls of vulnerable women?
You know, when
he kind of looks like it. He looks like a demon to me.
He's got that drawn in like creature of the night. I need to feed on.
He's got some gargoyle energy.
He definitely does. It's odd that he's so like sought after by women. Maybe that's one of those like I kind of have that tendency like because I'm not attracted to men. Most of the time, just the bigger your muscles are, I'm like, that guy's hot, right? And I've had women before be like, no, he looks like an ogre. And I'm like, oh,
it's like, well, I guess
he looks like what I wish I looked like. So I figured that was what hot was.
That's there's something about that where all the memes where dudes are in the gym lifting weights. It's like I'm gonna be able to bench all of this weight and do these bicep curls so women know, and like no one pays attention, and other guys like, bro. Nice pecs.
That's pretty sweet, dude.
We got some nice arms there.
The same one with like nice cars. You get a nice car and divisions a bunch of women, and then you get the nice car and it's just 20 dudes in the parking lot. You're like, dude, it's a sweet car, dude. It's like, thanks. Sure. Do any of you have sisters that are coming out today, or
no?
Did I spend $200,000 on a sports car for no reason?
Not no reason. You did it for appreciation from the bros, and sometimes that is far more valuable than what you could get from the other side.
Some of these bros better start appreciating my ball sack, or I'm not going.
There's, but I guess to your point, like the whole like actor thing, and I think to a degree, it's like why should I care? Like these are not normal people. They are all weird. They like to be that famous, that rich. Yeah. You've just got to be weird. And why do we expect them? Enough. Like, why do we expect them to be like every Joe? You know, it's one of those. Like, let's take Kanye for example. I think Kanye is probably off his meds. He is certainly off his meds. I also think that Bianca might actually be like a plant to like help take him down. To a certain degree, like the more and more I think about it, it's like maybe she's just in on it, and she was supposed to gatekeep him, and you know, it's like okay, you know, like one day she got beamed in the message. It's like activate, take it, like operation take down Kanye, go.
That's very possible, but I will say, same theory of my Pete Davidson line. I don't know if any gaggle of Caucasian women have ruined as many black men as the Kardashians. They do psychologically destroy some of those men when they're done dating them. So maybe the damage was already done when Kanye got there. To
but Bianca. Kanye's alright, dude. But like, come on, dude. We're talking about Kanye. We're talking about a dude that went and snatched a mic from a 15-year-old Taylor Swift. Yeah, it's like I'm gonna let
I've seen that in one of my favorite conspiracies.
He's always been off the hook.
Silly out there are the and that's used in the compilation videos I've seen on TikTok here and there about it, is that the entire music industry by requirement has to pay fealty to Beyonce and Jay-Z, and that was actually him saving Taylor Swift's life in that moment because she forgot to give a call out to Beyonce after she won.
Oh, gotcha.
And if you don't do that, the Black Mafia, Illuminati,
then you're done. Then you're done for. Yeah. Well, that's some deep threads. I'm not gonna say it's not couldn't happen, but it's pretty deep.
It's a long ways to go for somebody who seems to be having a pretty good time as just a pop star already anyway. Why would she also be an Illuminati?
Yeah, you gotta start connecting a lot. But to your point, it's like Kanye he's always been unhinged, and I think that there was, especially like after his mom died, down the drain. The man's, it
did help for sure.
But here's the thing, right? Am I going to buy one of his shirts? Of course not. One, because I personally don't care what anybody does in their personal life. I remember there's this video of Haley Williams from Paramore at one of her shows talking about you like anti-Trump things, and some people were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe Paramore would say that." Like, I'm not going to listen to music. Like, what are you talking about? They write bangers. Like, I don't care what Haley Williams has to say about anything if she's not singing into that microphone. Do not care. If she's not talking about the music that she makes, why she makes it, how she makes it, or singing said music, couldn't care less. Anything that comes out of any of their mouths. And
it's the exact opposite rule set for that Tom McDonald white boy rapper. Like, anytime he's talking politics, I'm like, this guy's pretty good. And anytime I've tried to get into his music, I'm like, oh, this guy's complete ass on the mic.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. She's got like some good shock value
like
songs,
like a lot of his political statements that he's made when I see him talking online. But every time I've heard him rap, I'm like, oh, this guy sucks.
Yeah, I'm not a big Tom McDonald fan. But like to your Bill Cosby point, like they're all pieces of shit. Like they all, you know what I mean? If there's a good one amongst them, well, good. God bless them. May they live forever and
have every rule.
And have a prosperous career, and hopefully.
But Tom Hanks is touching kids. I'll tell you that much.
Don't say that, dude. Because, dude, like, I don't know what libel laws are, but I hope because we cannot.
I'm sure Tom Hanks' lawyer team is a little more well-rounded than
dude. We cannot afford the libel suit. All right, this is all.
That was a joke, Mr. Hanks.
This is all jokes.
I have nothing but respect for you and your son Chet, who I consider to be the pinnacle of white American culture.
Absolutely. Colin, you should have done better at naming him. It's like name determinism is a real thing. Yeah, I don't know if we can say stuff like that. Not that I don't know if anybody like pays attention to this.
No, that's fair. It's like, I felt as soon as you reacted, I definitely had a moment of like,
so we cannot afford that lawsuit.
That's probably worse than just saying cuss words on here.
It's like, oh no. Yeah, I don't know what the libel laws are, but hopefully that one goes unnoticed. And of course, we are just joking about you, Tom Hanks. We love you. We love your movies. You are great, Sully. And loved you in The Green Mile too.
That's right. The way you talked to that beach volleyball throughout the movie Castaway was heartfelt, revolutionary, and I'm sure is drawn from your experience of talking to smaller human beings, as you like to do.
Bro.
Excuse me. I went back into. I'm sorry. I went the wrong way. I was apologizing. I'm sorry. I forgot what we were doing for a second.
There's actually, this is a weird little tangent, but it's actually not a tangent. It's on point. I want to say that when it comes to, so libel is putting things in print. Slander is speaking them out loud. When it comes to those things, when they are a public figure, you have to prove actual malice, right? So like if you and I think that we are covered, right? It's
what damage did I do?
Exactly. Like you and I are nobodies.
What did I put out there that you haven't already heard from Tim Dillon?
Also fair, right? But I think there is like if you and I were, let's say, a very, very reputable, well listened to podcast that actually had like any sort of sway on the culture whatsoever, then perhaps we could be in that world. But like I don't know, we're just two idiots screaming into the microphones that like 18 people listen to every week. Like, what damage did I do to you? You know?
All of my listeners already thought you were a pedophile.
Dude, they're just gonna cut, like, when the lawsuit comes, they're just gonna clip this episode, and any hope that we get from the jury, it's like, oh, maybe we've turned the argument. You're gonna say something and it's like, well, just like put my arm on the cross and start hammering.
This is a satirical podcast, guys. We aren't even anti-Semitic. Wink.
Yeah, because we're a very serious podcast. It talks about very serious things.
The most serious thing.
Yeah. What were we even talking about? Oh yeah, just like artists, and yeah, they're all weird. And I'm not going to be off
that was.
By anything
have you watched Ari Shaffir's newest stand-up special? I think it's.
I've not.
There's he talks about Kanye, and that's kind of the point. Is like, do you think that Kanye was going to be normal? Like artists, the great art throughout history has been created by the craziest human beings in our population.
Yeah, Van Gogh cut off his ear.
That was exactly who he went to. He said, "Do you think Van Gogh was cool to have a beer with afterwards?"
Dude, no way.
Like, dude, he was cut off his ear. Pretty hard to have at a dinner party. He's probably got some wild ideas about art.
For sure. There's somebody that takes this very seriously. And
and maybe some
also,
correct opinions about Israel.
and, and it's one of the right, like how are you supposed to relate? How are those people supposed to relate? And I think that to a degree, it's like if your brain works in that way, you're not normal. It's like let's take John Mayer for example. I like his music, but what I really love is like watch him play blues guitar. And if you go on YouTube and watch him play, when he starts playing blues guitar, dude, the fultism comes out. He hides it well when he's singing and doing his music, but when he starts playing guitar, like just guitar, dude,
Yeah.
fultism, he can't hide it. And that's a guy
Well,
that
that's the monkey paw wish that John Mayer made. He wished to be one of the greatest guitarist musicians in history, and also to get unfathomable amounts of beautiful celebrity pussy. And the monkey paw cursed him in that he is the best guitarist around, but the music he loves is not the music that gets him the pussy.
it's not. No, that's actually
So he has to sing his
yep.
sappy, terrible love songs. I also love that as a trend of like Bruno Mars kind of falls into this category too, but like the guy who exclusively sings songs about how he will sacrifice himself for women, how women should leave him because they're too good for him, and how he wishes that he just had more time to spend with those women. Those are always like the worst womanizers.
For sure.
It's like they write the Hallmark equivalent of songs, and yet they have also never been in a relationship for more than 6 months. And they cycle through women like I do socks.
The monkey paw. That's actually a really good example of it. And I used to have a deep hatred of John Mayer, probably because, somewhere deep down, I'm jealous, like how good he is.
I was going to be legal to date Jennifer Aniston in 5 years.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It was probably some very irrational early, late teenage, early 20s thinking that, but I watched an interview with him and he'd just come out with an album and they asked him about the music that he makes. And he's like, no, I just make this music because you guys keep buying it. He's like, all I want to do is play guitar. And that's all I just want to do is play blues guitar. But you guys keep buying my music, so keep writing albums.
I promise I won't cheat on you.
and at that point I had a lot of respect for that answer. It's like, okay, cool. Like
sweet. Around a bit.
Good for you, right? It's like good, go write your sappy albums and make your millions and millions of dollars, and then you get to go sit on stage and autistically spaz out with BB King. It's like good for you. Like that's the best of both worlds.
Sometimes you just have those moments where you like catch a clip of somebody talking and you go like, oh, I see what you're really about. And maybe I don't agree with what you're doing, but I gain a little respect and like understanding your angle. I feel a little bit of that with the Paul brothers and their boxing. And like the more I've trickled through my information over the years of involuntarily learning things about them,
sure.
I like found out how big of wrestling fans they were. And it just kind of clicked one day. I'm like, oh, they're being wrestling heels.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Paul knows he's not the best boxer in the world. He knows he would get scrubbed by any real contender. That's why he picks the biggest names who can no longer box.
For sure.
And he makes this big show of being the biggest cocksucker in the world because that makes people want to see him get knocked out.
Yep.
And then that motherfucker takes $200 million to the bank.
He takes home so much money. At a certain point, you're like, yeah, after this after the last fight, it's like, can't knock the hustle. Like, nope.
Yeah.
Can't knock
it's a hell of a scheme. The Kardashians were another good one of that too that came up earlier. Like I used to I can't believe these damn Kardashians are in the news. I hate hearing about these sluts. Oh, it's just killing my young male brain that hates all these things they're popping about. And then one day you look up and you're like, they're all billionaires? How did that happen? And you start looking at the money they made and you go, okay, they weren't just dumb whores. These women made an incredible amount of wealth on grounds that I might consider amoral and wouldn't do myself. But it's a hell of a lot of a more it's kinder opinion I have of them now when it's like, well, at least they have an end goal, and man, did they ever capitalize on it.
Can't knock the hustle. You can't knock. And it's one thing, it's like even though it's like, would I want to do it? It's not like Elizabeth Holmes of what's that company that she Theranos that defrauded like hundreds of millions of it's like at least like they actually provide a service and a product to the world. I might not like the product, but they're not out here just like scheming Walgreens into giving them 150 million contract for their patches that don't work, and they're and lied to Joe Biden about labs that don't exist. It's like, well, at least they like at least they're providing a product. It's can't hustle. And I think that I've always been a big believer in separation of church and state in terms of artists. Like they're not normal. They're all probably at the very best, they're all very weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet it gets really dark really quick from very weird. And like, do I condone that Kanye is selling Nazi like swastika shirts? Of course not. Am I going to stop listening to Graduation because of it? Nah.
Yeah. I do have to say, I did buy one of the Yeezus yarmulkes. Those are pretty sweet.
Wait,
I made that up. I don't.
Oh, I was like, wait, what? I was like, that's at a certain point, like, can't knock the hustle, dude. You're out here.
We made a lot of them. We haven't sold a lot of them.
Out here selling Nazi shirts to the haters and yarmulkes to the believers, man.
I think I sent that one to y'all, but there was a pretty good satirical, to the point where I had trouble realizing it was satirical till the second product got pitched, but they were doing the incognito yarmulke, and they had some cute name for it, and it was a yarmulke that on top was made of hair, so you could put it on top. That way you didn't have to get hassled in the street by the anti-Semites.
Dude, that's what's up.
It's quite funny.
Now I just have this image of like somebody completely bald with just this little weird like tuft of hair. The reverse.
Good news, Matthew, because they did think of that, and they also have one that looks like somebody's circumcision that you can put on top of your head.
Oh, even better.
If you're a bald man.
Even better. Yeah, it's like you're walking around with the reverse Larry David. Everything else is bald except this one like beautiful tuft of hair right here on the top.
I have wondered that. I know the yarmulke is like I mean, what's the idea behind it? That you're like,
I have no idea.
Space
Never
for
looked
God.
into it.
It's supposed to be something about
no idea.
A nod to the man up high kind of thing.
Okay.
But there is also this thing where every old Jewish man does bald in exactly that spot, and I wonder, like, is there a connection there where some old Jewish man was looking around the village 12,000 years ago and was like, why don't we cover this up and like start wearing a hat? I'll just tell everybody it's for God.
That's excuse me. I was laughing and I choked on my own spit right there. It is to signify reverence for God, demonstrating humility, and to serve as a reminder that there is a higher purpose or higher power above you. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, higher power like the controlled media state and the bank.
At a certain point, it's like, well, you can't fight it. Well, you explain to me how 97% of Congress. It's like, how does you explain to me how Mexico has a Jewish president?
Hey, maybe this is perhaps this is why IQ science is so frowned upon by our media states. Maybe the answer really is that simple, that like, yeah, guys, it's the same reason that Nigerians do awesome when they come here. They're just smarter than the average person. Like,
yeah.
They don't want that to get out because that makes people resentful.
Yeah, that's fair. Totally fair. And you know what I mean? Like if you are, I will say and I say this in all sincerity, if you are one of the world's most prosecuted people, been kicked out of God knows how many countries, how many pilgrims and revolutions and burnings and roundups, and you still get to rise to what you do, it's like, good for survivor, good for you, well done. Like you've earned, at this point it's probably like you've earned it, you know, like if you guys can survive 5,000 years of everything that you've gone through, cool, have the world. Clearly you are better than us, you know. It's like I just had this revelation, it's like maybe they are our superiors, like, you know, it's like
maybe God really did choose them.
For sure. Maybe they are just our betters and we're all jealous because we're not the chosen ones. And it's like maybe they're right. Maybe we do suck. Maybe
that's we are
all going to hell.
One of those nice horseshoes again, where like you can come around to that side from this perspective, but you can also, that sounds very similar to what you might hear in a Jewish only room, you know.
For sure.
Yeah, obviously we're better than these goyim. They're just fucking animals.
And then here we are to be like, huh, man, after all of this, like after 20 years of this, like, huh, maybe they are just better than us.
I
I
thought
don't
for
know
a
how did
second you were
they.
going for the old bar analogy of like, I don't know, call me crazy, but if I get thrown out of 109 bars in the Austin area, you're not like, what is wrong with all these bars?
Oh no, for sure. There's definitely some culpability there. You know
What
what I
is
mean?
with
It's like
all of
I've
these
I've I haven't
bars?
been kicked out of that many rooms, and I know people that are kicked out of places, and they generally suck. The
Yeah, that's a
two,
good
the
point. I
dude,
never
hold
really
up,
thought about that. I don't know that I've ever been thrown out of a bar
no, oh god, no, I'm not
ever.
obnoxious like that.
Maybe once from being like belligerently drunk as a young drinker. Maybe got kicked out for
Yeah,
being
maybe
like
I
a
don't. If I,
TABC liability, you know?
yeah, if it happened, I don't remember it with myself. But yeah, it's like, and it is. The two are not exclusive. You know what I mean? You can be
Little category A.
now in my my newfound love for the for the Star of David. It's you can be our betters, and you can also be fucking obnoxious and insufferable at the same time. The two are not exclusive.
Which tends to be, I mean, I almost brought that up earlier when we were talking about celebrities. Like, that's a huge libertarian principle, is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like, there is something to be of once you've had the power for a while, it's
Damn,
pretty
dude.
hard to stand you.
I'm gonna have to do like I gotta take a break, dude. I'm having like this like flash, like holy shit, like what if they actually are the chosen people? Like, I was just like I'm rocking my own worldview. It started as like this severe mocking session, and I don't know, maybe it's like maybe there is something to this.
That might be another one of those monkey paws. It's like you do get to be God's chosen people, but you do have to look Jewish. So
And we will treat you as such.
you're not going to put a lot of basketball players out there.
Yeah, that's the monkey paw is an interesting thing. It's like it gives you your wish. It's not
That's an
malicious,
interesting,
but
and
it's
obviously
but
there's no way to get a hold of the information, but like, I wonder how much of that could also be informed by like having been an oppressed group for so long. Like, do you end up harboring higher IQs when you like have to have secret slave societies that plot their own escapes, and when you're having to hide from Nazi Germans, and like when you go through 4,000 years of hiding from people trying to kill you, is that just eventually you get to the point where like, yeah, the dumb ones didn't make it, man. Our IQs got higher by attrition.
yeah, that's interesting. Or even if you're not hiding, plotting your own wars of race and space, the conquest of Canaan if you're Joshua,
Yeah,
fending off the Assyrians, like those are not dumb people task. That's actually a really interesting thing to think about.
that's interesting.
Huh.
I wish we could
Huh.
find a way to do that, but I guess there's, I mean, I wonder when did we even start taking IQ?
Yeah.
When
And IQ is
was
such a
IQ
it's
invented?
not the end all be all, right?
Yeah,
It's definitely a
1905.
metric. It's definitely a metric, but
It is, so
it's
this
not the
kind of
end all
comes
be
back to
all
like
of
the
intelligence.
IQ science has become one of these dirty ones, kind of like a phrenology type thing, or like, or race sciences. They're like, we're not even, it's a no to even look into that. But from what I've seen in data points, like IQ does correlate with financial success in life
No
quite a
doubt.
bit. Like,
No,
there's
no,
not that it's perfect, and I think
I'm not trying to
being
poo-poo
a
it.
relentlessly hard worker probably has a stronger correlation with
Yeah, but
financial
if you're
success in
if
life.
you're shit
But
house dumb, then all
IQ
the hard
does have a
work in the
correlation.
world's never gonna, you know what I mean? Well,
Right.
cool. You've
Right.
just now you're going to be employee of the month for the next 30 years, or it's like
Yeah,
yeah.
you can work you can work your ass off all day with a handsaw. It's still going to take you a while to get that tree down.
For sure. Yeah. No, I know I'm not trying to poo-poo it because it is, but it's like, it's, I think it is a little bit
I
more
guess what I was trying to get
nuanced
at
than
is
that.
there's a lot of I feel like sometimes it gets poo-pooed to the point of going too far, because it's like, guys, there isn't no correlation with it. Like,
For sure.
there is a correlate. We keep acting like there's just no correlation because it's a rough subject to talk about IQ scores.
Yeah. Well,
Probably because it gets broken down into race at some point and people start
you
using
know
it
what
to
I
like,
mean? And whether, like, I don't know, it's probably one of those uncomfortable things that no one likes to say out loud. But yeah, it's like, are we surprised that black people in the South have lower IQs? Like, they were subjugate, you know what I mean? It's like they weren't allowed to read, it's like that's an oppressed population for couple hundred years. That doesn't have any. That's not negligible on long-term outcomes. You know what I mean?
Right. I guess
It's
that's maybe a good counter to my argument about the Jewish people getting it through the crucible of slavery, because maybe we didn't have the best test in our most recent trial run of that, of it resulting in like the highest IQ population. It
oh
probably a part of the control in that study would have to be the what's the word I'm looking for? Disbarment of their inclusion in education as well after that for a couple hundred years, you know?
yeah. I mean, there's a whole 100 years or separate but equal, all of that good stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's
There's
like, yeah, they
it's
still didn't quite get the access then either.
for sure, and but it's I guess, but to your point, right? I know that a lot of these books and topics they get skirted around, but like I don't know, like why should we dance around it? Like
Yeah, that's
so,
my
you
thing.
know
Is like,
what?
I don't
Like
know.
it's
We
like
have
so
good
like
statistics
sucks.
on anything. Why are we ignoring it?
For sure. Like, yeah, does it suck that all that happened? Of course it does. It it sucks to lose. Like that's the biggest lesson of history. Don't lose. And anytime you lose, it's just not good, right? Like, yeah, it sucks to lose a warring tribe with your neighbors and they put you in chains and the Portuguese just happen to show up on the shores one day and and the Portuguese would be like, "Cool, I'll take a boatload of them." You know, like don't lose. If you won, you would get to sell your neighbors into slavery to the
Right.
Portuguese, and you would still occupy parts of Western Africa.
And you
But you
get to
lost,
take all
and
of their women back to your village and eventually all die of smallpox together.
for sure. And but you lost, so it sucks to lose. That's that's it's unfortunate, and
Yeah, not many populations throughout history have come out better after losing a physical conflict. And usually is
all
not Wayno.
but one. There is one though, which is like, dude, I am. I gotta take a break, dude.
Yeah, let's take a piss break.
I gotta get this together. I am I'm a convert, dude. Holy shit.
Quite
Let's
a
get some
thinker on this one.
let's get some feeding the ducks.
Mm. On my way to the restroom just now, I walked through my living room area, and my dog was sleeping on the couch, and she lifted her head and gave me a very annoyed look at the noise I was making, and I don't know, it just filled me with a light enragement. Like, I don't know, this dog doesn't pay rent. This dog doesn't clean anything. In fact, has the exact opposite effect on my house, if anything. I don't know. There's something to like your pet who has a charmed life and does nothing all day and getting annoyed at me for making noise in my own house. I don't know. Just want to smack that dog, I guess. This black-haired, useless bitch on my couch doing nothing all day. All jokes. My dog's a sweetheart. I don't know what Matthew ran off to read in our break here, but I really look forward to whatever anti-Semitic book he brings back to this podcast. You listen to me complain about my dog?
No, I just heard anti-Semitic book.
Oh yeah, saying I don't know what Matthew ran off to get during our break here, but I'm really excited about whatever anti-Semitic book he brings back to the podcast.
I had to go return back to the mean. It's like, oh, this is out of control. Oh, what's going on here? I don't know. There is something to that. There's all of these other. It's like, I don't know. Maybe they just are our betters, and maybe
that's interesting. I mean, it could be that. It could also just be like, victories or histories written by the victor.
Yeah,
I guess they weren't winning in all those conflicts.
They lost a lot.
They did, for sure, but they sustained somehow. Their story stayed intact,
which is, I think, kind of the point where maybe I haven't given them enough credit.
Maybe you haven't given God enough credit.
It's one and the same. They're his people. So
I was thinking about that. Who was it? Was it all of the original tribes of Israel were all the chosen people, or was it a specific tribe? I can't recall.
Oh, I actually can't remember. It's been a minute since I popped up in my Old Testament. Is a specific tribe of Israel the chosen people? Dude.
This is hilarious. Now, granted, this is Google AI, so this could be incorrect.
Hit me with it.
The explanation, the first bullet point, the term chosen people is a translation from a Hebrew term, Am Singula, or the treasure people.
Okay. Well, thanks for that.
The Jews, who were always blaming for being little gold grubbers, called themselves the treasure people originally.
And you know what? There's something to be fair. I've got to, it's like that didn't just happen overnight, because in all of those societies that they were subjugated, they weren't allowed to have jobs. And you do what you have to survive. And they ended up just, it's like, well, so, like lending money is not a job that the Romans won't let me have.
Right.
So,
are you making the case right now that we're the Democrats and that the Jewish people are Donald Trump, who was sent through the crucible and made stronger by our own actions?
At the start of this podcast, man, I would have resisted that idea. At this point, bro, there might be a Star of David behind me next week. Like I might be a full-on convert after this conversation.
You can return back to your roots. This was we called Matthew Jew throughout all of high school. One, because he wouldn't grow his afro out, so we were trying to shame him. It started off calling him Jewfro. And two, because we were all white kids in West Texas and we didn't know how anti-Semitic or racist we were being the whole time. Not that it would have stopped us. I guess I should.
No, but it's like the N-word just didn't quite apply. You know what I mean? It's
didn't
like
apply enough. That's what held everybody back.
Yeah, because like you
could. Like, I don't know. He's darker than me, but he don't look like them fellas on the TV playing basketball.
Yeah, for sure. He don't play basketball like them.
You definitely did not.
I did not.
It's unfortunate that you inherited your basketball skill from the culture and not from the genetics.
Yeah, you know what, man? Sorry. I'm sorry I let everybody down. You know what? I bet.
That's an interesting tangent question to ask you specifically as somebody who had this. And for anybody who's not familiar, Matthew was the only black kid in our entire high school, and probably one of 3 in our kindergarten through 12th grade in our hometown. How much pressure did you feel growing up in pushing you to sports or expectations of basketball stardom? And do you recall any specific?
No, that was just all you guys.
It was just all of us who wanted to finally be good at basketball.
That was just you guys. There was I felt no pressure from anyone except like you, Dalton, and Bo.
Somebody did ask me that the other day of like, is the pressure in those small towns to play sports even that you weren't that interested in kind of high? And it's like, yeah, absolutely, because the people who do care want to win. And there's only so many adults you can put on the field when you have a graduating class of 20. So you're like, please, dude, you're 18. You have a man's body. Can you please just play left guard for us? Holy shit. We just don't want another 15-year-old on the field right now.
Yeah, it's I get it. I was too lanky. Coordination, you know what I mean? Like I didn't get my coordination till in college. It's rock climbing that actually gave me my coordination, because after that, it was, you know what I mean? It's like I clicked in an athletic world.
You did become a much better athlete after the fact.
For sure. In high school, I was useless, dude.
Yeah, other than straight lines and
I could run fast. Yeah, I could run fast. I was a good track runner.
I did used to laugh so hard about how frustrated Dalton would get at high jump when he would like work tirelessly on his technique, and he perfect whip, and you would just cannonball over him and like a full 6 inches higher than the fight. I used to have to listen to him talk. We would drive to Clovis, New Mexico to take college courses in the afternoon, and I would have to hear him bitch the whole way about if Matt would just listen to one goddamn thing I would say, he could be the state champion.
Maybe if Dalton was nicer to me, I would have listened to him. And if you were nicer to me, if all of you guys were nicer to me, I may have listened. This is some inside baseball. They were all mean to me because I was the young kid.
Just imagine if we didn't pick on you that whole time, how much more of a whiny little shit you would be now.
Ooh, that's fair. That's totally fair. I'll take it. And also, like, it felt good to be accepted as the young kid in the senior group.
Even as the speed bag for the group.
It's better to be.
It's still better. And you definitely took advantage anytime there was another underclassman, usually my younger brother, but any younger classman hanging out. Yeah, Matthew would turn
I was so mean to Luke.
The crosshairs went to whoever that younger person was.
Shame on me. I know that this is all like very specific that nobody cares about, but all I can to just like put it in a nice general context. I did not handle my bullying from Logan very well, and I passed it on to mainly his younger brother. And
which is a bad bag because he was already getting bullied by me.
And I'm not proud of my behavior. There's a lot of things that I did in those late high school, early college years that I think
that's a natural part of growth. If you look back at who you were when you were 18 and you're not embarrassed by it, you probably haven't grown enough as a human by the time I would say 25.
Or you're a saint. You know, it's like either you're just bad 1,000, you're a saint, or
it's possible.
Yeah, I was so shame on me, dude. And sometimes like not specifically to anything like Luke, but like occasionally something will pop into my head that I did in high school or college. Like, how horrible of me! Like that is just like shame. Like you go hide in the closet for 5 minutes and hide your shame from the world for what you did 10 years ago.
I had that moment when you told the raccoon story to me last week. I don't even remember if that was on the air or if that was after the fact, but
it was after.
I still need to call my sister and apologize for apparently calling her a whore when she was like 10 years old. I have no recollection of that story, and I'm sure as you told the story, it hit true to me as like, oh yeah, that's definitely something I would have thought was funny and would have said in the moment. But in the context of the age she had to have been when I said that, I'm like, that wasn't the right audience to say that funny joke to. That's potentially devastating to a child, a young girl who's just about to start puberty. Like, it has enough shit going on in her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, as we're having this conversation, I did intend to call my sister and apologize for that. Well, because I put that on the to-do list this week.
That's totally fair.
She may not remember that either. Hopefully not. hopefully it's not the formative moment of her childhood.
Probably repressed deep in there, like all the other things that we have to draw out. Yeah, there's a lot of things that that we've talked about throughout the years. Like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. It's like I guess I just repressed. I just didn't want to remember that happened. So buried it deep in the subconscious, and
It's
now it's
funny.
like, oh,
That's one of my favorite, like, spur of the moment little gifts of life is when one of those comes back to you, usually when somebody else is kind of recanting the story, and it's a hilarious thing. You're like, oh my God, I forgot one of my favorite stories just slipped my mind, and I get to revisit this anew and have like a reclamation of a lot of these memories too. Like once you start kind of remembering it, and especially talking it
right.
out with somebody, you start remembering details of this. Like, oh my God, what a fun time we had.
Yeah, I'm sure what comes to mind. I'm sure that you and I have radically different stories and viewpoints on this one. There's snow. I'm late to the party. I hold on behind Bo's truck in the field on the tube way too long. I'm sure you guys had a great time that day. All I could think about was don't let go. Your friends already think you're a bitch. You must hang on. And then
That was
turns out it's like
hilarious. Yeah, that was
exactly. Yeah,
it
it's
was
like
that
yeah,
is a
yeah,
hilarious
exactly.
memory.
Exactly.
We plotted that out too. This is this is back to the fantasy football hijinks I was recanting to you before we started. I love little pranks like that. Just bring me such joy. And that one we had all talked out because the rest of the group were junior and sophomore. So in lunch we went to college classes, which were shut down that day for snow. So Matthew had to go to class longer than the rest of us. So we all went out and stole a lid off of a dumpster in lieu of a sled, which nobody owns in West Texas because there's no snow there 99% of the time. And we tied the rope to the truck and all that. And we all went on our rides in that -degree temperature. And we all realized very quickly this is cold and miserable, as fun as it seemed in our heads. So we all did us a nice 5-minute ride and tapped out. But we had the conversation well beforehand, you getting out of class, that we're going to tell Matt that he's a fucking pussy if he gets off within 30 minutes. And we all went for hours and hours. And the pressure of the indignation of the upper class caused you to hang on to that sled for so long. You were just frostbitten and half dead, which we at 17, 18 years old thought was hilarious.
Well, it's
risking frostbite. Our young friend.
It goes to show you how far anybody will actually go to be accepted. And to kind of tie this back into some sort of semblance of the format of the podcast, it makes you wonder, like, how, like, are libertarians a young me in high school, right? Are libertarians a sophomore Matt trying to get in with the seniors Logan that is the Republican Party, and what are we willing to put up with because we're finally in, right? After being losers, you're finally part of the in crowd. And what are you willing to just go along with? Not because you're particularly stoked about it or you think it's a good idea, but it's a lot better than being not.
I'm
in
sure
the
my
in the
best friend
crowd.
Jimmy will totally understand why I held his feet up when we gave him that swirly earlier. I'm one of the cool kids now.
It's it does make you wonder though, because the in versus out, right? I mean, we talk about this all the time with Kiefer. You know, it's like you're my team good, my team good, bad team, wrong team bad, and it does beg the question of how much of this is really just finally on just a modicum of the culture instead of now
Yeah.
the weird anti-war kids that's like, what, you didn't vote for Obama, or it's like all of the arguments of that they've hurled at us over all of the years, and now that it's like, oh, you actually can be on the winning team. Feels good to be in the cool kid. It sucks to be a loser.
Dude, that's no joke. And I mean, that was a large strategy for a very long time until the internet populated enough podcasts and non-corporate political voices for us that people started getting different opinions. But used to, if you made a really good point about what the government was doing that was stupid, every single one of those talk shows met you with the same response. They went, and they looked at each other and they went, do you really believe that? They didn't have to argue your point because it was expected of you to have the right opinion. And it was embarrassing that you didn't have the right opinion. And it works if the room believes that as well. Because everybody starts laughing at you and now they're done listening to you. You're just the clown in the room. It doesn't matter what kind of opinion you threw up there, that they didn't counter any of your perfectly viable points, because you're in the out crowd now. And the cool kids have decided you're a dork, man. You don't get an opinion anymore.
And it sucks to be a dork. I mean, and the older I get,
I'll have to take your tips on that as a high school athlete
yeah, of
myself.
course. As somebody, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I remember you holding the long jump record for over a decade, sir. All right.
That's fair. I don't think I broke any high school records. But it was a Texas high school, and I have a high school football MVP. I think that usurps almost anything you can get.
Yeah, probably better than my stupid jumpy sports out there.
And they were gracious enough not to put our 1-9 record on my trophy, which was very cool of them.
Yeah, that was, well, newsflash for everybody. We were mediocre athletes at a less than average school, and all of our record shows across the board.
Yeah, that's accurate for sure. I was talking to somebody just recently about the quality of coaches in those schools, and my favorite one was always be an athlete. Do you remember that being screamed at us all the time?
Be an athlete.
Be an athlete, which is always my favorite rebut to your team not playing well, because it's like, I don't have any strategy for you guys. I don't have any tips on how to score better or how to shut down their offense. But I do have a way we can win this game. It's if you guys all turned into what I was in high school 10 years ago at halftime, then we can win this game. And it's like, coach, we're not going to get better. We're not going to get better athletes this season.
Right.
Maybe if we all hit the weight room all summer, we might have better athletes next season. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
But being an athlete is just not advice to winning a game.
So I think this was after we got off one night. We were talking about Myles Garrett, and we looked him up in high school. You say be an athlete to Myles Garrett. You know, that's
if he's out there getting pushed around by somebody, he could use that advice.
Right.
But when somebody jumps 5 feet over my head and dunks on me, there's nothing athletic in my game that's preventing that from happening, you know? I've made my long, storied basketball career on a very horizontal-based basketball game. That was again probably the same conversation we had the other night, but we had one of those where we played Hill Center, I believe, right? Where Melvin, was that his name?
Melvin.
And I remember going into that, and Melvin's supposed to be this tremendous athlete, and I'm like, yeah, until I get my fucking hands on him, and I'm going to shut this dude down. And then I got to smell Melvin's jockstrap all fucking night as he jumped over my head every time a rebound was in reach. Dude. That dude was a fucking athlete, and I was not.
I know that this is like so pointed and specific, but I am enjoying talking about all of these things because what I think that anybody, like, life lesson, tie it in. Sometimes you're not as good as you think you are. Keep trying, but also like don't try too hard, because if you're outgunned, you can't win. I think about summer league when we were playing 2-3 zone. I think you had already graduated, and Jay Crockett. So this guy went on to play D1 basketball. Had a decent career overseas in Italy. An athlete. Just like an all around, like
6'7", conversations about playing in the NBA, even though it didn't work out.
For sure, but was really good. And I remember it. So for those, like, to put in perspective, the school that we went to, a very small 1A school. And Clovis was a multiple state champion in New Mexico, 5A school, had the caliber of athletes. We might as well be playing college, you know.
The amount of guys they carried on their basketball team was about the size of our senior classes.
Yeah, that's fair. And all way better than us. Every single one of them. Even the last of their bench, way better than all of us.
Yeah, would have been probably the best player in our school.
And I remember we got the very unfortunate draw having to play Clovis right after they won the state championship in summer league, and we were playing a 2-3 zone. It was me and Landry on one side. Jay Crockett got it, and you saw the face, right? And I know that if you haven't played basketball or watched it. There's a dunk face, and it's just like, I got this shit. And
He just turned and he saw the tops of 5 white boys' heads, and he's like, I think I can dunk it right now.
pretty much. And it was like he saw like a little bit of my fro sticking up, but it did not obscure his view of the goal. And so he took a power dribble, and Landry and I just both stepped aside. Like, I know what's going on. Like, I'm not getting in front of him.
I don't want to go viral in my hometown for having his balls in my face.
Yeah, for sure. That's where the story goes. It's like, so Landry and I just both bail out, and then Rain steps over. Good, poor, sweet Rain. And I look over, and it is Jay Crockett's junk right in his face. He is just the nastiest stuff. And we probably should have just forfeited right there.
The game's over. We have an emotional injury that we cannot overcome.
And I'm sure that we probably lost like 70-8 in that summer league game. Because, of course, we didn't score on them. It's like a free throw. Yeah, but
that guy that has a 6-foot vertical is already a foot taller than everybody.
Yeah,
in the middle of the paint, just swatting it away.
It's one of those images I always just like, oh no. It's like, dude, don't take the charge. Hero.
I had me one of those where a guy who was like 6'7" range, who didn't play at Georgia, but like got a scholarship there and got in trouble. But big giant guy, and I always had that up and under move where I'd go under the basket and then shoot the reverse layup against tall guys. They never see it coming. They always go for the block because they think they're good. And this guy just jumped up and just like swatted both sides of the backboard and just caught the ball with one of them. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to score today is what's going to happen. Yeah. I'm a defensive player today.
For sure.
And wasn't a good defensive player. He scored plenty on that end too.
Sometimes you're just outgunned. You have to acknowledge your betters. Say like, that's why I'm converting, dude. You've got to acknowledge your betters. Like, and no amount of fighting, gym time, weight room, film prep was ever going to make me a better athlete than Jay Crockett. It was never, Yeah,
it wasn't in the cards.
You just have to acknowledge your betters, dude.
Component to that game that just wasn't there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why they got us. That's why they all got us, dude.
Do you think that the larger prefrontal cortex causes the nasal capacity to protrude more to make room for itself?
Yeah, you need more oxygen because they're not mouth breathers.
Ooh, good point.
They're,
oxygen intake for the brain.
Like these people aren't snowboarders mouth breathing everywhere. All right, these are sophisticated high class individuals that breathe through their nose, so they need the larger noses to support the oxygen for that big brain that they're carrying around.
It is unfortunate that snowboarders have to take breaks while it's actively snowing because they risk suffocating on the snow in their mouth.
Oh man. What else you got, Logan? You got anything else? A little nice.
I've been thinking about
yeah.
Oh, I do. I have I got a random one, and then maybe I have a deeper one we can talk about too.
Cool.
But and I haven't done my research on this one. This may need to be like a full episode. We dive down perfect. We talk out our ass. That's what we love here.
Let's go.
So remember the whole Ron DeSantis trying to take away Disney's tax exempt status?
Yes, I do.
So that kind of just kind of went away after that. We never heard anything about it. I don't think they ever actually lost their tax exempt status. Now, I heard that the reason for that they used in court was that they are not an American property, that they're owned by the Crown of England.
Disney is?
Disney, apparently.
Oh.
Maybe specifically the one in Florida. Is Disney, that's land owned.
Disney. Which
We're
one's
going to do some live research.
Disney World and Disneyland.
Disney blocks Ron DeSantis with King Charles clause.
What's the clause say?
Let's find out here.
Oh, this is, my immediate outrage, and maybe there's some nuanced takes in there after we do some research, but hearing about this with no preparation, having done literally zero investigation into it, no way. We do not defer to the English crown. Like, if they're actually owned nope, tax them until King George hates it so much that he sells to an American. A real American. Like we will like dude, if they're actually getting I hate that. Like we fought a revolution about this stuff. We don't care about the English crown. We don't care about Princess Diana. We don't care about Henry or Harry or whoever's got the wife problems. We don't care about and we don't care about them. We don't. And if they're getting tax breaks because they're English royalty, that is one of the most un-American things I've heard all week. I hate it. I hate it.
Trying to figure out exactly. Yeah, it's something about being a specialty. What was the term they used? I lost it. Specialty land development status that exempts them from a lot of control from the U.S. government.
Why? And so, okay, in all seriousness, if this is something that's actually real, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, do your fucking job, right? Like, yes, there is waste and bloat to get rid of in the federal government, but also disavow the English crown
It's
of
pretty
getting
wild.
tax exempt
Part of
status
their
in Disney World. Like, that's got to go for that's got to be like priority one on the chopping block. Get the British out of Disney World.
So part of the agreement goes back to a royal clause that dates back to 1692. Why are we honoring anything before we declared independence from them? Like,
oh, dude, you
and
know
now
how
that
many
shit null and
treaties that
void?
we've broken with the American natives? But like we're American, we don't care about treaties, dude. We break treaties all the time. It's like, oh yeah, if you just like relocate to part of Georgia, we'll leave you alone. Then Andrew Jackson comes in like, actually, Oklahoma it is for you. We don't like. Why are we on like? We
There you
don't
go.
honor treaties.
This declaration shall
Americans.
continue in effect until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III, King of England, living as of the date of this declaration. So yeah, some weird like deal that was signed about it being, I guess, in perpetuity to the. I wonder if descendants mean direct descendants of King Charles,
King,
or if that means like in perpetuity descendants, because that's not going to end unless you perform a very violent coup and kill all the members of the family, right?
Hold up, wait. Could you repeat that? It was 21 years of perpetuity. Okay, yeah. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, all right. This declaration shall continue in effect until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III, King of England.
Bro. What? What? Like, they've got at least another. All right, how old is. All right, let's just do some quick math. How old is Andrew? Prince Andrew. He's in line. No, wait. Is it Harry? Which is the good brother that didn't marry the American?
Harry?
Because Prince Andrew is he's the pedophile. Yeah, no,
Andrew's the pedophile. No,
sure.
Harry's the one who married the chick over here, right?
Okay, so who's the other one? What's his brother?
Harry, Andrew, and
William. Ah, yes, a good strong British name. All right, so how old is William? All right, let's do some quick math here. All right, so how old is Prince William? Dude, that's a bullshit contract. All right, he is. Oh, dude, he's 42. Oh, Charles isn't going to make it that much longer. He's, I don't know, he's definitely got less than a decade in him. But
is King Charles III the current king?
Yeah, he is the current king. So let's say that he's got 5 more years in him. And William will be 47. Let's say that he lives to be 75. That's another. So we got 5, and
maybe what if in the crazy timeline this leads to Six Flags or whoever the other biggest competitor is for Disneyland sending assassins to kill all of Charles' prodigies
just to get rid of them,
just to end their tax exempt status,
dude. Because the way unless right, like, and I don't wish catastrophe on these people. because I have nothing personally against them, but the way that it shakes out, because he's got young kids, right? Like if he lives to be, he's what, 40, what was it? He's 42. So let's say that he takes over the crown, he's 47. Prince Charles dies in 5 years, and he lives to be 75. His kids will be in their early to mid 20s when they are then crowned the King of England. Like, we're saddled with this for the next at least 75 years. Like, what if they all lived to, like, their mother?
And don't forget, 21 years after the last one of them dies.
So we're saddled with this for at least 100 years.
We'll never get to appreciate that sweet Disney tax. All that liberal money's just going over to the crown.
Dude. Also, can't knock the hustle, man. The fact that country survived the end of World War I, where all of the monarchs were deposed, and they just like slid through, especially because they're German. Like, it's
right?
Like that family's kind of German. The fact that they're able to just slide through all of that, good for them. Good for them.
I wonder if that's maybe the only thing. So I had thought of this as something to talk about today, of like the focus on America and the focus on our political system and our economic control and our cultures over here, and how much the rest of the world observes and consumes our culture. But as far as things that Americans consume outside of the country, like that might be number one, is British royal weddings for some reason. Yeah. I don't know why people care about that, but we do tend to care about it. It's an odd thing too, in like the land that fancies itself the bastion of democracy, that we're so obsessed with royal lineage and this system that we escaped, Like we still have a big boner for princesses, and like we get teary-eyed when princesses get married, and it's like, isn't that the whole idea of like the worst thing, that this is the whole reason we rebelled and started our own government, was because of how bad the system of monarchy was?
Yeah, I have a thought on this, and bear with me. I don't think it'll actually take that long to outline it. I think that the reason that part of American, right? Like, I know enough to know that there's like two sons, and like who's the one with the wife problem. It's like I know enough because of the culture that just filters into my world.
Involuntarily learning this
for
knowledge.
Sure. I know enough, and I think it parallels something that we're going to see a trend over the next 30 years that might not overall be good for humanity. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I think the idea and the experiment of liberal democracies is running its course. And I think that we are going to see a return to authoritarian and totalitarian and oligarchies across the board. Like, it's a nice idea. I think that it's great. I think that with 200 years of the experiment running, the peasants, like, you just can't trust the people. We're fickle, and I am the people, right? It's like, dude, we're fickle, we're short-sighted, we don't know what's good for us. We are willing to bite the hand that feeds us if we can get just a little bit more for our meal today, even though if I don't bite the hand that feeds me, I can have meals for the next 10 years. You just can't trust the people. And I think that the experiment of liberal democracies, as you can see, it's like, to some people, right, like Nazis are in control of America, but the AFD, far right wings of governments are winning across the board in Europe. Why? Because people are tired of it. And I think that the reason that Americans are so obsessed with kings and queens and princes of England is because deep down, as the peasantry, we all yearn to be ruled.
We're all very tired of hearing each other's opinions about politics.
We desperately want to be told what to do as a class of people. And
that's interesting. If you really boil it down, we are primates. We come from a lineage where one male is bigger and stronger than the rest, and the rest of us shut the fuck up and do what he says.
For sure.
So there is something to, like, that is kind of how we were genetically brought up to be. As much as we love ideas of independence and independent thought and and creativity, and the vast majority of us, 99.99% of the population, we're all kind of just products of the culture.
Well, I think we're all products of the culture, and in terms of evolutionary psychology, dude, we're half a step off the plains of the savannah. You
Yeah.
know, what our ancestors, our great ancestors, 200,000 years ago, we are almost identical to them. Yeah, well, minus the diabetes and the
Yeah, the
microplastics, but
obesity.
our brains though are functioning in almost identical ways
Mhm.
because 200,000 years of evolution is a second. It's a drop in the
Right.
bucket. It's not even half a step. It's like we just barely left the starting block in
Yeah,
terms of
you
that.
guys just got to the point where your skin tone's starting to match your environment. Like your brain still has a couple million years before it starts really
It's
moving, guys.
for sure. And I think that we just deep down, I think that as a whole, we yearn to be controlled and ruled. And that's why libertarianism, anarchism, why it's such a fringe and niche argument, why it's not more culturally accepted, right? Because if you sit down and go point by point with people about why you believe in libertarianism, overall, you're not going to get a little resistance. You might get some divergence on, well, oh, well, I feel like government
It's
should have
important.
this function and do these things, and which are all worthy goals. But overall, you're not going to get that much disagreement. But when you start to incorporate that into a larger society, it breaks down because as a group, we yearn for our betters, right? Like, why does the idea that after all of this trials and tribulations, a certain people can emerge better? It's like I yearn for my betters, dude. I want them. I
Deep
I
down,
look
you already
for
know
them.
they should control the media.
Dude, like
Why wouldn't
like
they
uh,
control the banks? What are you talking
like
about?
I yearn for somebody that is better and smarter than me to be in
All right,
control.
I have my rebuttal ready.
Go for it.
So, is this not real communism, not real capitalism? Is it the same argument in that you say that liberal democracies have failed because the people can't be trusted? However, I challenge you to point to me the liberal democracy that you see that was not run by an oligarchy behind the scenes, that was not run by an intelligence agency, that was swaying the way that people thought. And that perhaps this is the first experiment in this large, sweeping turn back to the right wing in the worldwide, but in America, this complete shakeup of what our right wing even means to be in this country is maybe the internet having finally broken through to enough people that for the first time we're pushing back against the powers that are manipulating us and extending our influence as an informed voter base.
Hmm. Okay, that's a fair argument. I think that today I'd have to chew on it to think of an example today, but
Yeah, that's fair.
let's let's
We
take the
weren't ready for
French
this argument.
Revolution as an example of this, right? Like the monarchy's dead
That's fair.
and
It's hard
liberal
to point. It's hard
democracy.
to point to the oligarchy controlling it in the middle of
You
that
know,
mess.
that's just the mob.
Yeah,
Like that is just the mob, and there's a couple of people that take control of the mob and they wield the terror of the mob in their own benefit, but ultimately, Robespierre gets the guillotine too.
right.
Yeah. But there is a period where the monarchy is dead, long live the republic, and you get several
Yeah.
horrific years
Chaos.
of like you know what I mean? It's like in hindsight, I understand why all of the monarchies of Europe were like, we're gonna form a coalition and invade France because that is not good. Like, dude, those people have risen up, they've chopped their rulers' heads in baskets, and now they are just running amok. We should probably
Right.
invade them. Like, that is a
I'm sure there's a
reasonable take.
vested interest too of like, I would prefer that our lower class doesn't
Oh, I
think
go
this was a
100%,
successful
100%,
revolution.
100%. That is baked into the
Yeah.
equation. Like, you don't want those ideas. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
Let's make sure that idea, the end story of that idea, cannot be an upstanding liberal democracy. It has to be a complete failure of society. And if
it
that's not
has
going to happen, then it has to be by conquest. We're going to
for
make sure
sure.
it happens.
Yep. You have a vested interest if you are a ruling member of society in any other country in Europe to see that the French Revolution fails and falls flat on its face and implodes. But the French Revolution, it's like glorified now, but we gloss over parts of the French Revolution just like we forget the wizard years of Michael Jordan.
Mhm.
Very convenient. Like, no one likes to talk. Like, we talk about 6 for 6, but we don't talk about the return and the wizard years. And like, no, that's not part of the lore. And it's the same thing. Like, we gloss over all of the rough parts of the French Revolution that really start the idea
That's a
of
good
liberal
point. That
democracies.
story tends to end right after they behead all the monarchy. You
For
know,
sure.
they're
For
like,
sure.
and that was
Just
it.
like,
And you're like, they were still using those guillotines for a while after that, guys.
yeah, several years. Just like Michael Jordan, the story of Michael Jordan ends when he wins his 6th championship. And we forget the baseball and the wizard years. Same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, watching him on the Wizards did feel kind of like getting beheaded, to be fair.
That's well, I mean, it's the degradation of society. It happens to everybody. But I think that they're the dangers of it, right? It's like every form of government's dangerous. Democide is the number one cause of death in the 20th century for sure, probably the 21st century, and probably of all time, right? And if it's not governments, it's religious organizations who had the state, like the Crusades. That's all democide. Death by government is by far the largest killer of human through all time.
Yeah.
Governments invade other
Maybe
governments, and
maybe disease, if you make all diseases one category.
maybe, but Genghis
Maybe.
Khan kills a lot of people.
He
You know
did
what I
kill a
mean?
lot of
It's
people.
like if you can kill enough
A lot
people
of
to
people.
reduce the carbon output of the planet for 10 years, like
Right.
what's the Spanish flu got on you?
And there were plenty of other people wiping out entire other groups of people during that
For
same
sure.
period of time too. It wasn't like there was one bad guy on the horizon.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I just
I guess that's true. I mean, there's the old sea peoples mystery, where like
sure.
we can see the carbon footprint went so low that we're like, we almost went extinct. Like
For sure.
it got shady here for a second.
The Bronze Age collapse. It's like, well, that's weird. And
We almost weren't people. We almost weren't here to write these books.
I just think that, like, deep down, because we are group animals, we are creatures that want to be like tie in, like we're talking about in and out. Why is a sophomore willing to subject himself to embarrassment and things that any individual with a shred of self-respect wouldn't? Because I want to be in. Simple as
I
that.
want to be
And
in
that,
the club.
for sure. And it feels good to be in the club. And it sucks to be outside of the club. And I'd always rather be in, even if you're the lowest member inside the club, way better than being outside the club. Always.
I even think we got an interesting upbringing with that. I was talking to somebody about that the other day, of like being in a small school. And it's like the normal high school movie cliques don't exist because there's not enough kids. So what
For
you end
sure.
up getting is like the popular majority and then like kind of the weirder kids they all kind of hang out together by default, but they don't really like get invited to all the cool kid stuff.
And like popular majority is like you guys play sports.
Yeah.
That's
pretty
really
much.
what it was.
Do you
It
play
was
any sport?
any sport. You're either an athlete or you're not in a small town like ours.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
way better to be an athlete, even a shitty one.
I wore socks and slides with my basketball shorts till like 3 years of college after that with the self-delusion that I was still an athlete.
Yeah.
Like it was game day.
For sure. Yeah. I just wonder though, it's like how much of what we were talking about earlier about libertarians and their like, are we just so desperate to be part of the in group that we're
we let
willing to, like, what are we
the
willing to
wolf in
put up
sheep's
with?
clothing's got his arm around our shoulders
For sure.
right now.
Like, what are we willing to put up with because we're finally part of the in group? And it begs the
Possible.
question, because we need to think about it, because I know it's probably a ways down the road, but one day we're gonna lose. the culture is going to swing back because, like, Donald Trump will fuck this up way sooner rather than later. There's no doubt about it. And it eventually, you know
Let's
what I
just
mean? And
hope.
eventually, that
That's the
there's
dream. Let's just hope that Doge is so effective that it is an undeniable success at the end of this 4 years, and that the only avenue for democratic success is to one up the Republicans on trimming the fat of government.
we can hope.
That's
And
my ultimate dream. That's
that
also
is,
impossible, but it is my
it's not impossible. It's a great dream. It is a
great dream.
strive for utopia, I think is what that is.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably loftier than my idea of educating the entire population
It
about
is a
ideas of liberty
strive
and creating the libertarian revolution through podcasting.
for sure. But it's not impossible. Anything can happen,
Fair,
man. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just really curious though. And I guess I say all of this like people, why are they so interested in the Royals? Because I just don't know if there's a popular desire for freedom, like deep down. And and we might have our little moments to experiment with it, but I think a lot of people just have no desire to be free.
That is fair. A lot of
And
people don't know how to operate without a rule set laid out in front of them. I mean, there's a lot of the people like adult hall monitors, I call them, like HOA presidents and like people who sign up for school board meetings and then have this false bravado of authority about them. I had somebody look in my face recently as I was explaining something to them that they clearly didn't understand about restaurants, and they stopped me to say, I actually volunteer for junior high basketball games and I run the concession stand, so I think I know how the restaurants work.
oh, well, by all means, let me defer to you, senior expert.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your insight.
Yeah, it's it's multi-faceted. It's so deep, and I mean, there's so much psychology that I'm radically unqualified to talk about or even speculate that goes into it. But it's hard to be free, and and it's the trade-off, right? With everything that government is going to assume, they are freedoms that you give up. And with everything that government cuts and leaves to you, they are freedoms that you have to now assume and deal with. And I think that, and maybe this explains some of the resistance to Doge, right? Because, like,
whoa, what are we going to have to figure out on our own?
Exactly. Like, without the federal, but who's going to take care of
That's very
this?
fair. I mean, that's that analogy I love to make, like that we always thought it would take World War III to make 1984 happen. And in reality, it was just like, hey, do you want to unlock your phone with your face? And we're like, yeah, that sounds cool. You can have
That's
all
convenient.
of my information. You can
that.
map my face and my fingerprint. Sure. Like, it really, there is definitely something to be said about the ability to push through dystopian nightmares on the basis of like people like to be comfortable.
Yeah, never underestimate the lengths that people will go, or the things that they will suffer through if they are comfortable, and the lengths that they will go to if they are not. And it's the double-edged sword, right? Like, I'm comfortable, I can still go to work. Yeah, the price of eggs are out of control. Donald Trump said that he was going to change that, but they're expensive, blah, blah, blah. Also, sometimes a bunch of French women get really pissed off about the price of bread, and a series of events unfold, and 6 months later, Queen's head's in the basket. All because a bunch of French women are really
baguettes
upset.
away from the French. They're going to get a little upset about it.
It's and that's the delicacies. And the cool thing about history is that looking back, they're always small things. And that's what I say, like, what don't we see now in 20 years that's going to be, oh my God, like, of course that was the tipping point. Or, oh yeah, that happened. I can see how the rest of the events unfold. But for us, it's just right here. You don't get the view of the track.
I definitely did have a bread and circus moment this morning as I was looking up and realizing the NFL Combine's tomorrow and how much the NFL has expanded itself into being the 365-day-a-year league and monopolizing the entire space. And there was a little piece of me that's like, wonder if, between this and obesity problems in America, like maybe this is the little bit of like, just shut up and watch the TV.
It is. I think it is. And I think that if you can, I think that if, alright, so like people in this space that would actually spend their time listening to this podcast, I believe are sophisticated enough to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Right.
That you can hold
Yeah, that's
a
an
couple of
interesting
different
part of that.
thoughts.
Counter to that too is like, am I only truly a libertarian and a good political activist if I have no fun?
No, I think that's just being a bad human.
Makes
You
you
know,
miserable and
yeah,
resentful.
for sure. Like if you're gonna be, I don't know if any political, not to say that any, right? Like there's probably some red lines in my life that's like, well, I guess I'm gonna put on a plate carrier and go fight the cause. Not happy about it. I would rather be skiing, but yeah, well, I'm sure I have those red lines, but a lot of this is, yeah, of course it's bread and circus, but am I supposed to deny myself a modicum of escape and happiness and we talked about this last week. All of the people that are against Doge, they argue that, oh, it's only this much spending. Oh, congratulations, you got this spending. It's only 7 seconds of the federal. And why are we not talking about like why the fuck is that only 7 seconds of this of the federal government's existence, right? Like why is that not the conversation?
That's a B next to that dollar sign. That means billion, and it's nothing. Like
And
that's
it's nothing for sure.
That should be alarming. A lot. That's an unfathomable amount of money to me as a person.
And there's no way out of it. You don't get out of debt. You don't get $34 trillion out of debt, right? Like we're living in.
That's right. Yeah, God's chosen people were a little more clever with their contracts than that.
For sure, and they're on the opposite side of it because all of that debt's owed to the Federal Reserve. But then it's like it also leads into the area like if you owe the bank $600,000, the bank owns you, but if you owe the bank $600 million, you own the bank because they can't afford to close on. Yeah, and
Right.
It's one of those like tough things. It's like, yeah, we might actually owe the Federal Reserve $34 trillion, but like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna foreclose on us? Good luck. Like, good luck having everything that all of your money is tied up in: stocks, assets, real estate. Yeah. Have fun collecting that debt as they all plummet to nothingness, right? Because we go through Weimar Germany inflation. I think that we're living through a period of hyper normalization, and that was coined by a psychologist talking about late stage Soviet Union, where people know the government's not working. Everyone knows. I think that it's like we're holding on by a string, but
feels like a house of cards.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
So I guess I'm just gonna go work, and I'm gonna carry on and continue with my life. And I think that we're in the same boat here, where it's like, yeah, of course the NFL is bread and circus. Of course the Olympics, it's all bread and circus because you must give the peasants that, otherwise they burn down Rome. Like there's two choices: either give them the bread and circus, or they rally and they start chopping heads off, and no one wants that. So,
or if you give them bread and circus in Philly, they still burn the city down. But that's another.
Well, that's because Philly are garbage people,
horrible humans,
horrible humans. Like you, I mean, this is a whole nother tangent. But you want to talk about the degradation of American society? The fact that we let one of our most important founding cities turn into that says everything you need to know about us as a country. Shame on us. Utterly shame. But yeah, it's hypernormalization because you don't get out 30.
We're having a lot of conversations about annexing Canada. We should be having more conversations about forcefully seceding Philly into Canada.
They're part
like all of Pennsylvania. I mean, Pennsylvania, I guess, is not bad as a whole. We'll give them
Pennsylvania's bad as a whole.
We can call it New Toronto and put a fence around it so they can't get out of there.
I think, how do we do this? So, I don't want to give them Buffalo. I think Buffalo is like a great American city to a large degree, right? A bunch of scrappers, fighters, they believe in hope. They're tethered to a franchise that can't get over the top, but that's okay because we have, like, Buffalo's a great American city. So I don't want to give them that. there's probably a small corridor that could be slivered down to Philly, but I'd be okay with giving them Philly
Straight into it.
for sure. Think we could lose Philadelphia. I
Maybe
think
this
that
should
if
come back to the
Philadelphia
old
became
land bridge idea. Like we just give them Philly, wall it up, and then build a gigantic land bridge that is too high to jump from without dying that goes all the way to Canada.
so like those wildlife crossing
Yeah,
bridges
exactly like
across
that.
the highway.
Yeah, we already have come up with ideas of how to allow animals to move across land barriers. We just
Treat them like
apply
they
that
are.
to the
Those
animals in
fucking
Philly.
Philadelphians. Yeah, that's fair. Totally
I
fair.
had a moment the other day where I wasn't having a particularly fun day anyway, and saw a Philly fan come in, and I'm like, oh, this fucking jag off. I can't believe a fucking Philly fan's out here flaunting all this stuff in Texas. And then he was by far the most charming and nice person I talked to all day. I was
Oh,
very
it's-
upset about it. I was so mad that I liked that guy.
Yeah,
I wanted to hate him so bad because of
That's-
his team colors, just like our
that's
politics.
fair. That's totally fair. It upsets me that Hall and Oates comes from Philly because I really like their music, but it's like, no,
Some
why are
of
you
my
from
favorite
Philly?
comedians in this world are from Philly.
And well, I don't know
But
if
to be
you
fair, also some of the best comedians are made from broken upbringing. So the hellscape of Philly might
I bet to
generate
say
comedy for that reason.
there's definitely a lot of Philadelphia is not nice. Actually, most of Philadelphia is not nice. It's not nice till you get to the suburbs, like King
I
of
was actually
Prussia.
going on this rant during the Super Bowl, and the friend's house I was at who was throwing the Super Bowl party stopped me and said, I have very close friends from Philly. And then I'm pretty sure I just rolled right over that and kept ranting about Philly. But he, a couple minutes later, goes, actually, all my friends from Philly are complete assholes to anybody they don't like. Like they're really hard to deal with if you're not their friend already. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
For sure. It's Philadelphia. And there's and as somebody that did not grow up in big cities, I think all big cities are trash. You know, like Denver, Austin, New York, Philly, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they're all just garbage places. I hate big
It
cities.
is, to give credit to one of those big cities, it is really cool that Denver has incorporated an entire rail system to make sure their homeless people can sleep in the airport at night.
That's good for them. It's totally good for them. I've used the Denver rail system before. Well, it was a friend of ours, mutual friend from high school, lives there now, and we got finished with the ski trip and went and stayed with her and took took the rail into the city, and it was nice. Dropped us off downtown. We got wasted, and then we took the rail back. It's like, this is great. Like, don't have to drive. But yeah, but also like I just hate big cities. But when you talk to people that are from big cities, they have such different views.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like New York and Philly. Well, yeah, like that's. But to me, it's like you guys are all just animals living in a concrete jungle. As far as I'm concerned,
Gross.
there's no differentiation. It's like I know that you guys. It's like, but it's probably the same thing that we talked about. It's the close association, right? Like you got to come from a big city to know about big cities, and to the rest of the world, it's like you guys are all just snowboarders and skiers.
I always thought that was odd when people came out to the country from cities and were like, oh, it smells like poop out here. You're like, yeah, like cow poop, but your city smells like homeless corpses. Like,
But so, like, you guys shit on the sidewalk,
it's pretty gross where you're from, dude.
but for sure, like cow, cow shit.
Yeah,
And
all right, it
figure
smells
out
like
a way to
animals out
make
here.
money out here, at least that. But it's like, who's making money off your human shit? Probably
Yeah,
cost the
at some point,
taxpayer.
at some point, the wind blows the other way and it smells fine out here. Your human shit, where there is no wind between your concrete jungle, is pretty
lingers
stagnating.
outside your building until the overpriced, your overinflated sanitary budget of your city taking your goddamn tax dollars. Yeah, go Elon, slash it.
Slash it all.
Yeah, I think we can say that. Kind of get on some wrapping up points.
Yeah.
I understand the criticisms of it, and I'm skeptical that it's like the world's richest man wouldn't use, like, if you were the world's richest man and now all of a sudden you have unfettered access to all of the information of America, dude, you best believe I'm gonna abuse that to make sure I'm gonna abuse it. I'm going to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm not that big of an altruist. I'm not that good of a person. I'm going to abuse the shit out of it. However, in what world, in what proposition would anybody that's like, boo Elon? And I said, and I'm skeptical. I've been saying that he's a supervillain for years, and he should not be trusted in this role. However, what's the alternative proposition?
Yeah.
Like, how
That's
do you
exactly it.
ever?
It's look, I'm not saying this is perfect. I'm not saying I trust Donald Trump or Elon Musk. I'm not saying that they're not going to use this potentially to set themselves up for unfathomable wealth and power moving forward. This is, however, of all the hand wringing and times we've cried and Republican political figures who I've heard faint the idea of auditing the Fed and going through our military budgets, all that shit has never even come close one time to being addressed. And we have an opportunity here. So you can sit here and cry about it, or you can, be ready to criticize the shady shit that goes on. But let's be excited about the first time in my lifetime that we've addressed this ridiculous downward spiral that we've been on.
For sure. I agree 100%. And I beg everybody to ask this question, because I deal with this in my own personal life when it comes to local politics, right? I've probably said this, quick synopsis, right? A business person became mayor, and everyone was worried about conflicts of interest. And it's like, well, what is the level of personal enrichment that would disqualify this person from being mayor if you got everything that you wanted? If your government worked, right? If all of a sudden this local government, and unfortunately that I was a part of, right? Like, my administration in history will go down as a blight. Like, shame on, like, it sucks to be attached to that time period. Like, it sucks. Yeah, that's on me. However, if you got everything that you wanted out of your government, what is the level of personal enrichment that disqualifies your government from doing what you want? And it's not $0, right? There's a threshold, and there's a threshold on the other side, right? It's like, if the mayor of my small town all of a sudden makes $10 million next year, we'd be like, well, it's like, yeah, we do like better roads, but that's a little outrageous. But
right.
Is $1 million disqualifying? If you
and specifically if it's done in a manner where it's kind of the rising tides raise all boats.
For sure.
If everybody makes another 10 grand next year that they didn't expect to make because of all of his policies and the way he improved your town, but he makes 10 million, sure. Is it still acceptable because he did a great job? Versus, sure. If he makes 10 million, everybody else took a giant boot in the ass.
If you take a dive, right? And that's what I'm afraid about, like the Trump tax cuts that they're trying. It's like, oh, they're just trying to find a bunch of government ways so they can justify raising taxes on everybody that doesn't make $600 million or $600,000 a year.
And they've certainly been slow to address some of the corporate welfare stuff.
For sure,
they're a lot more interested in some of the other things that I'm like, hey, that's great, but there's some larger expenditures and corporate captures within our government that I think are a much larger issue.
Yeah, and to be fair, in the same vein of argument, though, it's like, because I can't remember the exact numbers, but roughly people, right, like the average American salary, anywhere between $20,000 and $80,000. Your taxes, if the proposed Trump tax cuts go into effect, you'll pay anywhere from $1,100 to $2,200 more in taxes. Are you willing to pay $2,200 more in taxes if it shaves off billions of dollars of waste? Is that a thing that, it's not all one-to-one. Like, government is public transportation. It's not perfect. It goes where it goes. The bus stops where it stops, and it lets you off where it lets you off.
For some reason, all the bus drivers are pedophiles.
It's not Uber. You don't get to just like type in where you want to go and it takes you
Yeah.
there. That's not government. Government's public transportation. One subway car takes you a lot closer to where you have to walk than the other. So you get on that subway car and you hope. And if it gets you closer, what are you willing to sacrifice? And I think that's the question that we should all be asking, because
I
it's
was
not
about
going
to
to be
say
perfect.
even, and part of that is like, hey, one is more efficient in the corporate privatized sector, but it is more effective. So what's the trade? But then as I thought about that, I'm like, that's not true though, because that's that false paradigm that it's free to have public transportation, and it's not. And I wonder if you do the numbers on that, does it not just become more expensive than everybody taking Ubers anyway in the long run? Because it's like,
It
yeah, you're
might.
taxing the shit out of us. We'd have to look at the numbers on that to feel
It
confident in
it
that
it,
statement.
it
But
might. It may not. I don't know. Yeah, that's probably like an interesting
it's not free,
deep
being the
dive to
point
do.
that
Well, no,
that's the
nothing's
false paradigm that people have in their head a lot of
for
times.
sure. And I think that if we are to have an intelligent conversation about what's going on in politics, we have to acknowledge that nothing is free.
Mhm.
If you want government if you want government cuts and you want Elon Musk going through and slashing things, there's a cost associated to
Yeah.
that. And it might be that
including the cost of your own freedoms
for
that
sure,
you do have to take on the responsibilities at that point.
because cost, nothing is free in this world. And that's the biggest misnomer. Oh, it's free. No, it's not. Like I was at this winery the other day and they're like, "Oh, well, if you buy 3 bottles of wine, we'll give you this thing that you were going to purchase for free." And it's like, "Oh, so really?" And of course I did it, because you don't have to like sell me on more wine for some really nice olive oil. Like, of course I'll take your buy. Like, I'll take the bait. But don't tell me that if I buy these 3 bottles of wine, my jar of olive oil is free. No, because you just upsold me. I just spent, I just spent $25 more dollars on a bottle of wine on this bottle of olive oil that was not going to cost me that much. So don't tell me that it's free. It's not free.
Yeah, don't assume that they're pricing so bad that you get to take advantage of them. It's the old man selling watermelons analogy. You remember that one?
Uh-uh.
There's an old man. He has a sign that says one watermelon $5, 3 watermelons $12. And the guy who looks at the signs is like, well, that's silly. And so he buys the 3 watermelons and goes like, you see how much money you're giving away by selling them 3 at a time? And he goes, I've been selling them 3 at a time all day.
For sure. Because you showed up to buy one and
Right.
I now sold you 3. So, yeah, for sure. It's a real thing. But I think if we're going to be like to actually try to add some value into this space, I think that we need to have a long, hard look at what are we willing to sacrifice? What is the cost associated? If what Trump and Elon are doing gets you closer to what you want overall as a society, are you willing to have a tax increase?
Or
Like what?
even,
Like
how about, we've never had a shot at this ever. Do you want to take the one shot that is materialized at actually lessening your government? Yeah, I think a lot of things are worth it. I think we take a
it's
shot
worth
at
a
it.
shot for sure. And I mean, God, I hate taxes so much.
Mhm.
I hate taxes so much. However, if and that's the and I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out, right? Because it might be that, oh, congratulations, we just slashed things that, yeah, we saved some money, but now Elon just got a big old fat contract, and oh, the billionaires just got tax cuts, and yeah, it's like pretty much status quo. All we really did was fire a bunch of federal workers, but expenditures are the same. Well, then bad deal. At the end of the day, it's a bad deal. However, if it gets you a little bit closer to it, what's the number? And I think it needs to be built in to the equation. What is the level of government cronyism, and maybe not corruption, because I think it just comes with the territory. Like, corrupt is the Teapot Dome scandal, where you steal the. God, this is so specific. So there's these leases, oil leases that are oil reserves. They're owned by the U.S. Navy. for future wars. And when Harding takes office, he appoints a Secretary of State that then starts to sell off those oil leases to other people. And everybody's like, fuck the conservationists. But it's blatant. You know what I mean? It's like, how does Sinclair all of a sudden get $100 million of oil leases for, you're going to build some above storage tanks in Pearl Harbor? It's blatant, right? That's corruption.
Yeah.
That is outright corruption. But cronyism, it's a lot harder to define. Like, if you tangentially benefit, how much of it are we willing to tolerate? And that's what we need to be talking about. Instead of like, is Elon good? Is Elon bad? Is Doge good? Doge bad? Trump good? Trump bad? It's like, well, how much?
Yeah, you've got the wrong paradigm. It's not
sure.
good and bad. They're all bad.
For sure.
So which one stands to benefit you potentially?
It's which one gets you closer to the world that you want to live in. Is it Subway A or Subway B? One of them takes you closer to the world you want to live in. Is it perfect? Of course not. And I think that we should be honest and open about our trade-offs and what we're willing to sacrifice and what we're willing to put up with and tolerate. If it get right, like if you want a reduced government, cool. How many billionaires are you willing to give tax cuts to if it gets you reduced government? Is it 0? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Are you willing to defund the national parks if it get, it's all a complex trolley problem. There are no casualties. Every track you pull, people are going to die. People are going to lose their jobs. It's going to cost them money. There's going to be primary, secondary, tertiary consequences of all of these decisions. Which one were we willing to tolerate? And I think that that's where the conversation should be framed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm following you for sure.
Okay.
And it's these false parameters that we set around all these conversations, which we're very familiar with as libertarians, and exactly the example I pointed out earlier, that like there are all of these ideas from the pro-government side that get pitched to you as, your side's ridiculous because the alternative is perfection. And it's like, no, the alternative is not perfection. The alternative is what you're bringing to the table, which has been proven to be terrible this whole time. So
for sure,
stop acting like it's either my way or the correct way, because it's my way or the way that's being proposed by these other guys who are all a bunch of corrupt bastards as well.
Yeah, it goes back to the old Prussian general who was very upset with the army chief of staff, where it's like, we have a good plan. Like, don't let the idea of a perfect plan be the enemy of a good plan. And I think that's it's all very double-edged, right? And I speak to myself because I know, like, don't get me wrong. Though I've been like, let's go, I'm not a red. You will not find a MAGA hat in my closet. You will not find, it's like, cool. Like Trump is getting me closer to the world that I want to live in than Kamala Harris. But that does not make me an outspoken Trump supporter. And correct. He is not a demagogue that I'm going to worship and give deference to. Like, fuck the orange man, I'm tired of him too, to be fair.
The tangerine tyrant.
But you have to make choices. Gotta make choices. One gets, it's like the world that I live in today, I think is probably better than if Kamala Harris was president. Because the things that instead of talking about like, dude, government cuts, like all of the things that we've talked about in this podcast.
Talking about,
can you imagine the bitching? Can you imagine the bitching that we would have been doing over the last 2 months if it was Kamala Harris?
We're optimistic right now.
We would have been insufferable with the bitching that we've been doing.
That's pretty good. I think that we should choose right now to end this podcast at the 3-hour mark. I can't believe we talked for 3 hours going into this with absolutely no subject matter.
That's because we're fucking good.
We're good at talking.
But yeah, we're good talking. I don't know if we're
At
good
least
at podcasting, but
maybe
good
maybe
talking.
not good at talking, yeah, but good at filibustering. Maybe it's if you're not enjoying the talking, we're good at putting words out of our mouths, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, on that note, thank you very much for listening to Against the Mob podcast. We appreciate you. You have a lot of media choices, a lot of distractions, a lot of places that you could spend your time. And if you choose to spend it with us, we are honored, we are grateful, we are humbled that you actually would care a modicum enough to turn this on. So if you do, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. Yeah. All that being said, something against the mob, people over politics, yada, yada, yada. We'll see you next week.
Y'all know the drill.